Yo, what's up? Welcome to H. Potter, where stories come alive. Buckle up because today we have what if the Forbidden Forest claimed Harry at birth and he was raised by Centaurs as the Foretold Starwalker. Quick favor, if you dig this content, drop a like and subscribe. It takes just a second but means so much to us. Let's roll. Chapter 1, Star Child. The ancient trees of the Forbidden Forest stirred restlessly on Halloween night. Not a breeze moved through their branches, yet they swayed as if whispering secrets to one another. The forest knew something was coming. Dumbledore's hand trembled slightly as he placed the bundle containing Harry Potter on the doorstep of number 4, Privet Drive. He stepped back, exchanged solemn words with McGonagall and Hagrid, and vanished with a crack. None of them noticed the faint green glow that emanated from the nearby hedges, nor the thin tendril of magic that snaked across the perfectly manicured lawn toward the sleeping infant. The bundle on the doorstep shifted. Little Harry Potter opened his eyes, revealing startling green irises that seemed to glow in the darkness. The magic tendril touched his blanket, and the infant gurgled, reaching toward it with pudgy fingers as if greeting an old friend. Then it happened. The magic surged, wrapping around the bundle like a cocoon of ghostly light. Harry didn't cry out, he laughed, a bubbling infant's laugh that echoed eerily in the silent suburban night. The bundle rose 6 inches off the ground and began to drift, picking up speed as it crossed the lawn, past the garden gate, and into the street beyond. Miles away, the trees at the edge of the Forbidden Forest parted like a curtain. The magic carrying Harry accelerated, racing over hills and through valleys, villages, and empty countryside, until it deposited the bundle gently on a bed of moss beneath an ancient oak tree deep within the forest's heart. Harry yawned, snuggled deeper into his blankets, and fell back asleep. He didn't stay alone for long. What manner of creature brings a human foal into our forest? The deep voice belonged to Megorian, his chestnut flanks gleaming in the moonlight as he approached the bundle cautiously. Firenze, younger and paler, moved closer. It's an infant. A human child. He knelt on his forelegs to examine Harry more carefully. But how did it come here? No human would abandon their young so deep in our territory. The forest brought him, said Ronan, the eldest of the 3 centaurs. His eyes were fixed not on Harry but on the night sky visible through a gap in the canopy. Look. Mars is unusually bright tonight, and see how Jupiter aligns with the North Star. The heavens themselves have delivered this foal to us. Megorian snorted skeptically. Preposterous. Humans don't belong in our realm. Look at his forehead, whispered Firenze. The blanket had fallen away, revealing a fresh cut in the shape of a lightning bolt. As they watched, the wound seemed to pulse with an inner light. Ronan gasped. The mark of the heavens. Just as the prophecy foretold. He looked up again at the stars, his voice dropping to a reverent whisper. The Starwalker has come. You cannot possibly believe this human infant is the Starwalker of prophecy. Megorian stamped a hoof impatiently. That's a myth told to foals. The stars do not lie, Ronan insisted. Born when Mars blazes, marked by lightning's kiss, brought by the forest itself, how many signs do you need, Megorian? Even if it were true, Megorian argued, what would you have us do? Raise a human among centaurs? Impossible. A sudden rustling silenced their debate. The 3 centaurs instinctively formed a protective circle around the baby, arrows knocked in their bows. From between the trees emerged a centaur mare, her coat silvery in the moonlight. Epona, Ronan acknowledged with a respectful nod. I heard your voices, she said, moving forward to look at Harry. And I felt the forest's magic stir. She reached down and gently touched Harry's forehead. The baby cooed and grabbed her finger. If we reject him, we reject the stars themselves. The prophecy is clear, he walks between worlds. Neither fully human nor centaur, but something else entirely. It's settled then, Firenze said. We take him to the herd. Megorian opened his mouth to object, but before he could speak, Harry's eyes opened. The brilliant green orb seemed to lock with Megorian's, and the Centaur leader felt something he'd never experienced before, a connection, as if the stars themselves were looking at him through this human child's eyes. Very well, he finally conceded. We will present him to the herd. The stars will guide our decision. Forenza gently lifted Harry into his arms. What shall we call him? Surely he has a human name. Ronan pointed to a scrap of paper that had fallen from the blanket. Harry Potter, he read. Harry of the Stars, Epona said softly. The Star Walker. 5-year-old Harry scrambled up the rocky hillside, his bare feet finding purchase where human children would surely slip. His wild black hair whipped in the wind, and his green eyes sparkled with excitement. Hurry, Forenza. We'll miss it, he called back to the Palomino centaur who followed at a more measured pace. The stars have waited billions of years, young one, Forenza replied with amusement. I think they'll wait a few more minutes for us. Harry reached the summit first and flopped onto his back on the flat stone surface. The clearing offered a perfect view of the night sky, unobstructed by the forest canopy. Forenza settled beside him, folding his legs beneath him. Now, the centaur said, show me what you remember from our last lesson. Harry pointed confidently. That's Orion the hunter. And there, that's Sirius, the dog star. Brightest star in the sky. Very good. And what did Ronan teach you about Mars? Harry's face scrunched in concentration. Mars is the bringer of battle. When it's bright, conflict comes. And right now? Harry studied the red planet. It's dimmer than usual. That means peace continues. Forenza nodded approvingly. You learn quickly, Starwalker. Harry's smile faltered slightly at the name. Bane doesn't think I'm the Starwalker. I heard him arguing with Megorian yesterday. Bane fears what he does not understand, Forenza said carefully. And you, Harry, are unique. Because I'm human. You are human by birth, yes. But the forest has claimed you as its own. No ordinary human child could hear the whispers of the trees or feel the pulse of the earth as you do. Harry sat up, hugging his knees to his chest. I'm not like the other foals. I can't gallop or kick. My legs are wrong. Forenza laughed. And they cannot climb trees or squeeze into badger dens as you can. Different does not mean wrong, Harry. A sudden streak of light across the sky caught their attention. A shooting star. Harry exclaimed. The Muggles call them that, Forenza explained. But we know them as star messengers. Quick, what does this one tell us? Harry closed his eyes, feeling into the moment as Ronan had taught him. It's a warning. Something lost is finding its way back. Forenza stared at the boy, startled. That was exactly what the meteor had proclaimed, but he hadn't expected Harry to interpret it correctly at such a young age. The prophecy echoed in his mind, born to humans but claimed by the forest, the Starwalker bridges worlds divided. When darkness returns, he alone will stand between stars and stone. Come, Forenza said abruptly, rising to his hooves. It's time to return to the herd. As they descended the hillside, Harry running and occasionally sliding down steep sections with delighted whoops, Forenza watched him thoughtfully. The boy was developing faster than expected. His magic was manifesting already, though differently than it would in a human wizard child raised among their kind. Back at the herd's gathering place, the other foals had already settled down for the night. Harry quickly found his sleeping hollow, a moss-lined depression at the base of an ancient oak, sheltered by its massive roots. It was the same tree where the forest had first delivered him 5 years ago. Sleep well, Harry of the Stars, Forenza said softly. Will you tell me a story? Harry asked, his ritual request every night. Very well. One story. Forenza settled beside Harry's hollow. Long ago, when the forest was young and the stars were new. Harry drifted off to the sound of Forenza's deep voice recounting ancient centaur legends. He dreamed of stars falling to earth and taking the shape of horses and men and creatures that were both and neither. Focus, Starwalker. Feel the life of the forest flowing around you. 7-year-old Harry sat cross-legged in a small clearing, eyes closed, brow furrowed in concentration. Across from him, Ronan watched intently. The magic of wizards comes from within, the old centaur explained. They force it through wands of dead wood to make it obey their commands. But the magic of the forest is different. It exists all around us. We do not command it, we ask, and sometimes, it answers. Harry nodded, trying to sense what Ronan described. The centaurs had been teaching him about magic for months now, but so far, he'd shown little ability to access it deliberately. I can feel something, Harry murmured. Like buzzing beneath my skin. That is your inner magic, Ronan explained. What wizards use. But reach beyond that. Feel the pulse of the earth beneath you, the whisper of the wind, the silent speech of growing things. Harry stretched his awareness outward. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a flicker. A sense of connection to something vast and ancient. There, he gasped. I felt it. Good. Now, don't grab at it. Simply, invite it. Harry tried to do as instructed, mentally extending an invitation to the forest magic he briefly sensed. For several long minutes, nothing happened. He was about to give up when a warm sensation spread through his body. He opened his eyes to find his hands glowing with a soft green light. Ronan. Look. The old centaur's eyes widened. Remarkable. Most centaurs spend years learning to channel forest magic, and even then, only the most gifted can manifest it visibly. The glow faded as Harry's concentration broke with the excitement. Can I try again? Before Ronan could answer, angry hoof beats approached. Bane burst into the clearing, his dark face thunderous. What are you doing, Ronan? Teaching a human our ways? The Starwalker must learn to, he is not the Starwalker. Bane interrupted. He is a human foal we foolishly took in. And now you teach him secrets we have guarded for millennia? Harry scrambled to his feet, face hot with shame and anger. I'm not just human. The forest chose me. Bane's nostrils flared. You speak when not spoken to. Where is the respect we've taught you? Enough, Bane, Ronan said firmly. The stars guided us to take in this child. I follow their wisdom, even if you do not. The herd grows soft, Bane spat. First we harbor a human, now we teach him our magic. What next? Shall we invite the wizard teachers from the stone nest to join our stargazing? Harry's fists clenched at his sides. He felt the buzzing beneath his skin intensify, and the air around him seemed to crackle with energy. I belong here, he insisted, voice shaking with emotion. The forest is my home. You belong with your own kind, human child. Something snapped inside Harry. The energy that had been building suddenly released. A wave of force exploded outward from his small body, causing the grass to flatten in a perfect circle around him. Bane stumbled back a step, his eyes widening in shock. That was no forest magic, Ronan whispered. That was wizard power, but channeled like a centaur would direct forest energy. Bane recovered quickly, his face hardening. You see. He is dangerous. Unpredictable. Human magic with no human training, a threat to us all. Harry's anger drained away, replaced by horror at what he'd done. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, Bane, enough. The commanding voice of Megorian rang through the clearing as the herd leader arrived. Return to the gathering place. Now. For a moment, it seemed Bane might refuse. Then, with a final glare at Harry, he turned and galloped away. Megorian approached Harry, his expression unreadable. Are you hurt, young one? Harry shook his head, fighting back tears. Is Bane right? Should I leave? Megorian exchanged a glance with Ronan before answering. The stars brought you to us for a reason. Until they tell us otherwise, your place is here. He placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. But what just happened shows that you carry two kinds of magic within you. Both must be understood. I can teach him to control the wizard magic, came a new voice. Firenze stepped into the clearing. I have studied their ways more than the others. Megorian frowned but nodded. See that you do. We cannot have such outbursts endangering the herd. After Megorian departed, Harry looked miserably at his mentors. I'm sorry. I just got so angry. Anger is a powerful emotion, Firenze said. It can fuel magic, but uncontrolled, it can be dangerous. Tomorrow, we will begin new lessons, to help you master both sides of your nature. That night, Harry couldn't sleep. He slipped away from his hollow and climbed his favorite oak tree, settling in a crook high among the branches. From there, he could see patches of the night sky through the canopy. Am I really the Star Walker? He whispered to the distant points of light. Or just a human boy who doesn't belong anywhere? The stars, as always, kept their secrets. 9-year-old Harry crept through the underbrush, moving as silently as the forest creatures had taught him. His homespun clothing, dyed with natural pigments, blended perfectly with the dappled forest light. A crude bough was slung across his back, and a knife carved from a unicorn horn that had been freely given hung at his waist. Ahead, a young centaur filly named Layla waited, her tail swishing impatiently. Unlike the adult centaurs, who mostly tolerated Harry because of the prophecy, Layla had befriended him of her own accord. Being only a year older than Harry in centaur years, she lacked the prejudice that sometimes colored the adult's views. You're late, she whispered as he approached. Did Epona keep you with lessons again? Harry nodded. Star charts. I had to map the entire Cassiopeia constellation from memory. Layla rolled her eyes sympathetically. Boring. Ready for some real adventure? What did you find? Harry asked eagerly. Not what, who. Humans from the stone nest are in the forest. Teachers, I think. Harry's eyes widened. Though he knew about Hogwarts School from the Centaurs' teachings, he'd rarely seen actual humans besides himself. Megorian strictly forbade him from approaching the castle or making contact with its inhabitants. Where? He asked. Near the western stream. Gathering plants, it looked like. Harry bit his lip, torn between curiosity and loyalty to the herd's rules. We shouldn't. Come on, Layla urged. Just to look. Don't you want to see your own kind, just once? That decided him. Let's go. But we stay hidden. They moved through the forest with the confidence of those born to its secrets. Harry might lack 4 legs, but years of living wild had made him nearly as nimble as his centaur friend. They traversed rough terrain that would leave most human children hopelessly lost, communicating with subtle hand signals and the occasional meaningful glance. Near the western stream, they slowed, approaching with extreme caution. Harry caught the unfamiliar scent before he saw the source, a mixture of strange herbs, old parchment, and something distinctly human but unlike himself. From behind a thick holly bush, they peered into a small clearing. 2 humans stood there, an elderly witch in emerald robes, her hair pulled back in a severe bun, and a younger witch with wild, bushy brown hair. The fluxweed must be picked at the full moon to retain its potency, Pomona, the older witch was saying. Perhaps we should return tonight. Nonsense, Minerva. We can harvest the non-magical specimens now for the first years to practice with. They'll never know the difference. Harry watched, fascinated by everything, their clothing, their speech, the casual way they used names. Centaurs rarely used names in conversation, considering it somewhat vulgar to address another directly too often. They're so colorful, he whispered to Layla. And loud. Humans usually are, she replied. Megorian says they have no sense of their place in the world, so they shout to convince themselves they matter. Harry frowned, oddly defensive though he'd never spent time among humans. Maybe they just communicate differently. Hush. Layla suddenly tensed. Something's wrong. Harry felt it too, a shift in the forest's atmosphere. The birds had gone silent, and a heavy presence seemed to press down from all sides. The witches noticed it moments later, both drawing wands and standing back to back. Minerva. The one called Pomona said nervously. I feel it. We're not alone. From the shadows opposite Harry and Layla's hiding spot, a massive shape emerged, an acromantula, at least 12 feet across. Harry had seen the giant spiders before, but never one this large, and never so far from their normal territory. Merlin's beard, gasped Pomona. The spider advanced slowly, clicking its pincers. The witches raised their wands, but Harry could tell they were terrified, their hands shook, and they kept backing up toward the stream, where they'd be trapped. We have to help them, Harry whispered urgently. Layla stared at him in horror. Are you mad? Megorian would banish us both. They'll die. Without waiting for her response, Harry knocked an arrow in his bow. He took a deep breath, centering himself as Firenze had taught him. Feel the forest. Ask for its help. A strange calm settled over him. He drew back the bowstring, the muscles in his arms strengthened by years of climbing and swimming. The arrow began to glow with a faint green light, forest magic answering his call. He released. The arrow flew true, striking the acromantula in the center of its body. Instead of piercing it, the arrow exploded in a burst of green energy that sent the massive spider stumbling backward, screeching in pain. Harry stepped out from the bushes, already knocking another arrow. Run, he shouted to the witches. Back to the castle. They stared at him in shock, a wild-looking boy with untamed black hair, dressed in forest garb, wielding a glowing bow. Who? The older witch began. No time. Go. Harry released another arrow as the acromantula regained its footing. This one struck one of its legs, causing it to collapse on that side. The witches finally moved, hurrying away from the stream. But instead of fleeing, they took up positions on either side of Harry, wands raised. We will not abandon a child, the one called Minerva said firmly. Pomona, Arania Exomion 3. Together, the witches cast a spell that hit the spider with blinding white light. It shrieked and retreated several steps, but didn't flee. Harry felt a surge of something unfamiliar, not the forest magic he'd been learning, but something within himself, hot and urgent. Without thinking, he dropped his bow and thrust both hands toward the acromantula. A wave of pure force erupted from his palms, striking the creature and sending it flying backward into a tree with a sickening crunch. This time, the spider didn't get up. Harry staggered, suddenly dizzy. The world tilted, and he would have fallen if not for Layla, who had emerged from hiding to catch him. Star Walker, she cried, supporting his weight against her flank. Are you hurt? Just, tired, he managed. The burst of wizard magic had drained him more than forest magic ever did. The witches approached cautiously, their expressions a mixture of awe and concern. Child, who are you? The older one asked. And? Is that a centaur? Before Harry could answer, thundering hoofbeats announced new arrivals. Megorian burst into the clearing, flanked by Bane and Firenze, all with arrows nocked and ready. Step away from the foals, humans. Megorian commanded. The witches raised their hands, showing they meant no harm. We intend no trespass, the older one said. I am Professor McGonagall of Hogwarts School. We were gathering herbs when that acromantula attacked. This remarkable young man saved our lives. Megorian's gaze fell on Harry, who was still leaning against Layla for support. You revealed yourself to humans. After all our teachings. They would have died, Harry said weakly. The Star Walker did what was right, Firenze defended him. The forest itself guided his arrows. And the other magic? Bane demanded. The human magic he used? What forest guided that? Professor McGonagall gasped. Starwalker. Her eyes fixed on Harry's forehead, where his hair had fallen away to reveal his lightning scar. It cannot be. Harry Potter. A tense silence fell over the clearing. Harry looked to Megorian, uncertain what to do. The Centaur leader's face was unreadable. Finally, Megorian spoke. This is not the time or place for such discussions. Professors of Hogwarts, you will leave our forest now. What you have seen today, you will not speak of to others. But, McGonagall began. The boy is under our protection, Megorian said firmly. When the stars decree it is time, you will know more. Until then, we ask for your silence. The professors exchanged glances, clearly reluctant to leave. I give you my word as deputy headmistress, McGonagall finally said. We will speak of this to no one but Albus Dumbledore. But please, if this is indeed Harry Potter, go, Megorian interrupted. Now. With visible reluctance, the witches departed, casting backward glances at Harry. As soon as they were gone, Megorian rounded on Harry and Layla. You have disobeyed our most important rule. Explain yourselves. Layla hung her head. It was my idea, Megorian. I convinced Harry to come see the humans. But I chose to help them, Harry added quickly. I couldn't let them die. The boy shows courage, Firenze noted. And his magic grows stronger. Both kinds. Both kinds, Bane repeated bitterly. Human magic that no centaur can teach him to control. You see the danger now, Megorian. The humans have seen him. They know who he is. They will come for him. They won't find him unless we allow it, Megorian replied. The forest protects its own. He fixed Harry with a stern look. But this changes things. The stars have spoken through these events. Your training must intensify, Starwalker. Harry straightened, still tired but determined. I'm ready. We shall see, Megorian said. For tonight, you both return to the herd and face your punishment. Tomorrow, we begin anew. As they made their way back through the darkening forest, Harry's mind raced with questions. The witches had recognized his name, Harry Potter. They'd seemed shocked, almost reverent. Why? What did they know about him that the Centaurs had never shared? That night, as Harry lay in his sleeping hollow, Firenze came to him. You have questions, the Centaur said, settling beside him. They knew me, Harry said. The witches. They knew my human name. Firenze sighed. It is time you learned more of your human past, Starwalker. The Centaur way is to reveal knowledge when the stars show readiness, not before. But today's events have accelerated things. Tell me, Harry urged. Very well. Firenze gazed up at the patches of starry sky visible through the canopy. It begins with a dark wizard, one so feared that even now, most humans will not speak his name. 11-year-old Harry stood at the edge of the Centaur territory, his bare feet planted firmly on the forest floor. Though still small for his age, years of forest living had made him wiry and strong. His black hair hung past his shoulders, occasionally braided with feathers or beads in Centaur fashion. The lightning scar on his forehead was visible through the strands. Beside him stood Firenze, watching as Harry practiced the meditation techniques they developed to help him control his dual magical nature. Good, Firenze approved as the air around Harry shimmered with a blend of green forest magic and his own inner wizard power. You're finding the balance. Harry opened his eyes, letting the energy disperse. It's easier now. They don't fight each other anymore. Because you've stopped fighting yourself, Firenze observed. You accept both aspects of who you are. In the 2 years since the incident with the professors, Harry had trained rigorously. Firenze had taught him to channel his wizard magic through natural focuses, not dead wands, but living would still connected to its tree, crystals in their raw form, or water from sacred springs. It wasn't the same as proper wizard training, but it had given him some control. Meanwhile, Ronan had deepened his knowledge of the stars and their meanings. The old centaur insisted that Harry's destiny was written in the heavens more clearly than any centaur's had been in centuries. The time approaches, Forenza said, interrupting Harry's thoughts. Mars grows brighter each night. Change comes for you, Starwalker. Harry nodded. He'd felt it too, a pulling sensation, as if something was calling to him from beyond the forest. The Hogwarts letter. Yes. Human magic seeks you. The forest has hidden you from their methods of finding wizard children, but your 11th year marks a threshold. The calling will grow stronger. What does Megorian say? Will I be allowed to go? Forenza's tail swished thoughtfully. The herd is divided. Some, like Bane, believe you should remain entirely separate from the human world. Others recognize that the Starwalker must walk in both worlds to fulfill the prophecy. And you? What do you think I should do? I think you must follow the path the stars have laid for you, Forenza answered. But remember always that you carry the forest within you, wherever you go. A sudden commotion from the direction of the herd's gathering place caught their attention. Hoofbeats approached rapidly, and Layla appeared, her young face troubled. Starwalker. Forenza. Come quickly. A giant human has entered the forest, calling Harry Potter's name. Harry and Forenza exchanged glances. Hagrid, Forenza guessed. The gamekeeper. Megorian has been expecting this. They followed Layla back to the herd. The centaurs had formed a defensive circle, arrows trained on an enormous bearded man who stood nervously in their midst. Despite his intimidating size, he held his hands up non-threateningly. I mean no harm, the giant was saying. Dumbledore sent me to find Harry Potter. It's time for him to come to Hogwarts. Megorian stood facing the man, his expression stern. The one you seek is under our protection. I don't mean him no harm. It's his birthright to attend Hogwarts. Harry stepped forward, moving through the circle of centaurs. He'd grown up hearing stories of the human world, of Hogwarts Castle, and of the dark wizard who'd killed his parents. Forenza had explained everything after the encounter with the professors, how he was famous in the wizard world, how he had somehow defeated the Dark Lord as a baby, how Dumbledore had intended him to grow up with his Muggle relatives. I am Harry Potter, he announced, his voice clear and confident despite the strangeness of using his human name. The giant man, Hagrid, stared at him in wonder. Blimey, he whispered. Yeah, look. Well, not what I expected, that's fair sure. He fumbled in his enormous coat and pulled out a slightly crushed envelope. Got your letter here, Harry. Your acceptance to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harry approached cautiously and took the envelope. The parchment felt strange to his forest-accustomed fingers, but the green ink seemed to call to something inside him. He broke the seal and read, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Source, CHF, Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confede, of Wizards, Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall. Deputy Headmistress. Harry looked up at Megorian. The stars said this day would come. Megorian nodded gravely. And we have prepared you as best we can, Starwalker. The choice is yours to make. Hagrid looked confused by this exchange. There's not really a choice, is there? Harry's got to learn proper magic. Bane snorted derisively. Human arrogance. You know nothing of what he has already learned. Peace, Bane, Forenza cautioned. He turned to Harry. What say you, Starwalker? Will you answer this call? Harry looked around at the herd, his family for all the years he could remember. Then he looked down at the letter in his hands. 2 worlds, both calling to him. I must go, he said finally. The prophecy says I must walk between worlds. I cannot do that by staying only in one. He looked up at Megorian. But I will always return. The forest is my home. Megorian placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. Then go with our blessing, Starwalker. Learn their ways, but do not forget ours. Never, Harry promised. Hagrid looked both relieved and bewildered. Right, well. We should be off, then. Lots turbine in Diagon Alley. Epona stepped forward. The boy will need his things. While Hagrid waited awkwardly among the centaurs, Harry gathered his few possessions, his bow and quiver, his unicorn horn knife, a star chart Ronan had helped him create, and a small leather pouch containing crystals and herbs for his magic. When he returned, several centaurs had come forward to bid him farewell. Epona presented him with a braided leather necklace bearing a single crystal. To remind you of the forest's protection, she said. Ronan gave him a small wooden case. Star charts for the coming year. Consult them when you feel lost. Layla, fighting back tears, pressed her forehead briefly against his in the centaur gesture of deep friendship. Don't forget how to be wild, she whispered. Lastly, Firenze approached. Your paths diverge from ours for now, Starwalker, but the stars say they will cross again. Remember all we have taught you. I will, Harry promised, suddenly feeling the enormity of what he was about to do. He turned to Hagrid. I'm ready. As they left the clearing, Harry walking beside the enormous gamekeeper, he felt a curious mixture of emotions, excitement, fear, sadness, and a strange sense of rightness, as if he were following a path long predetermined. Blimey, Harry, Hagrid said as they made their way through the forest, wait till everyone hears about this. Raised by centaurs. Dumbledore's gonna have kittens. Harry smiled slightly. The centaurs say Professor Dumbledore has great wisdom for a human, but misses what the stars plainly show. Hagrid chuckled. Yeah, certainly talk different, that's fair sure. Don't worry, though. Hogwarts'll soon have ya talkin' normal. Harry didn't respond to that. Instead, he asked, is it true I'm famous in your world? For something I can't even remember. Famous? You're the boy who lived. Most celebrated wizard in modern history, yeah are. Harry frowned. The centaurs never celebrated me for that. They only cared about the prophecy, that I would be the Starwalker, bridging worlds. Starwalker, eh? Hagrid scratched his beard. Can't say I've heard that one before. As they reached the edge of the forest, Harry paused, looking back at the shadowy trees that had been his home. Then he turned toward the sunlit grounds of Hogwarts, the castle rising majestically in the distance. 2 worlds, he murmured to himself. This is only the beginning. Ready for your first look at Diagon Alley? Hagrid asked cheerfully. Got to get ya all your school things. Harry squared his shoulders and nodded. I'm ready. The forest whispered farewell as he took his first steps into the human world. Chapter 2, 2 Worlds. Harry's first steps into Diagon Alley hit him like a thunderbolt. The noise, the colors, the smells, his senses, honed by years in the forest, went into overdrive. Hundreds of witches and wizards bustled about, their voices creating a wall of sound that made him wince. Strange scents from potions shops and food vendors competed for attention. And the magic, he could feel it everywhere, buzzing and pulsing like a living thing, but so different from the subtle flow of forest energy. Yeah, all right there, Harry? Hagrid asked, noticing the boy freeze in place. It's loud, Harry managed, his eyes darting everywhere. He'd never seen so many humans in one place. And bright. Suppose it would be a bit much if you used to the forest, Hagrid nodded sympathetically. Best stick close. Harry did just that, practically gluing himself to Hagrid's side as they made their way through the crowded street. People stared at the odd pair, the giant gamekeeper and the wild-looking boy in handmade forest clothes with feathers braided into his long black hair. "First stop's Gringotts," Hagrid announced. "Wizard Bank. Run by goblins." "Goblins?" Harry perked up with interest. The Centaurs spoke of them. "They say goblins understand the magic of earth and metal better than any creature. Air, maybe. Mostly they're just fierce about gold." The white marble building loomed ahead, impossibly tall to Harry's eyes. Inside, he stared openly at the goblins, studying them with frank curiosity that made several shift uncomfortably. "Mr. Potter's key," Hagrid announced to a goblin teller, producing a tiny golden key from his many pockets. The goblin peered over his spectacles, first at Hagrid, then at Harry. His eyes lingered on Harry's unusual appearance. "This is Harry Potter?" he asked skeptically. "I am Harry of the Stars," Harry responded, drawing himself up with the dignity the Centaurs had taught him. "Harry Potter by birth." The goblin's eyebrows shot up. "Indeed." He examined the key. "This appears in order. I shall have someone take you to your vault." The wild cart ride through the tunnels beneath Gringotts delighted Harry. It reminded him of racing through the forest on Firenze's back during their rare moments of play. When they reached his vault and the door swung open, revealing mounds of gold, silver, and bronze, Harry gasped. "All mine." "Your parents left well provided for," Hagrid explained. "Go on, take what you'll need for school supplies." Harry approached the treasure cautiously. The Centaurs had no use for money, and he'd never owned anything that couldn't be made from forest materials or bartered for with the few traders who sometimes visited the herd. "How much?" he asked. Hagrid helped him collect a reasonable amount into a pouch. As they prepared to leave, Harry spotted something glinting in the corner of the vault, a small pendant of silver and moonstone. Without thinking, he picked it up. "This too," he said softly. Something about it called to him. "That's not money," Hagrid said. "Must have been your mum's jewelry or something. It feels right," Harry insisted, slipping it into his pouch. Their next stop was Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Harry balked at the entrance. "Must I wear these coverings?" he asked, eyeing the displayed robes with distaste. "It's the uniform," Hagrid said firmly. "Everyone wears them." Reluctantly, Harry entered the shop. Madame Malkin took one look at his forest attire and forest-tangled hair and nearly fainted. "Hogwarts, dear?" she asked weakly. "You'll need everything." While being measured, Harry encountered another boy being fitted for Hogwarts robes, a pale, pointed-faced youth with slicked-back blonde hair. "Hello," the boy said, eyeing Harry curiously. "Hogwarts too?" Harry nodded cautiously. "Father's next door buying my books and mother's up the street looking at wands," the boy continued in a bored, drawling voice. "Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one and I'll smuggle it in somehow." Harry remained silent, studying the boy. He reminded Harry of young centaurs showing off during their first hunting lessons, all bravado and no substance. "Have you got your own broom?" the boy went on. "I do not fly on dead branches," Harry replied. The boy stared at him. "What? What kind of wizard are you?" "I am Harry of the Stars," he answered simply. "What sort of name is that? Are your parents kind? Magical?" "They were wizards, yes. They died." "Oh, sorry," said the boy, not sounding sorry at all. "But they were our kind, weren't they?" Harry's patience wore thin. "They were human, if that's what you ask. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're just not the same, they've never been brought up to know our ways. There is wisdom in many ways, not just yours," Harry interrupted, thinking of the Centaur's teachings. "The stars shine on all alike. The boy looked thoroughly confused. What are you on about? Anyway, what's your surname? Before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, "That's you done, my dear," clearly eager to finish with her unusual customer. Harry hopped down from the footstool, relieved to escape the strange conversation. As he left to rejoin Hagrid, he heard the pale boy say, "Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose," sounding thoroughly perplexed. Who was that? Harry asked Hagrid as they continued shopping. Sounds like a Malfoy, Hagrid grunted. Old wizarding family. Think they're better than everyone else because their blood's pure or some nonsense. Harry frowned. The Centaurs say blood matters only for feeding the forest when we die. Hagrid chuckled. I'd like to hear a Malfoy's face when you tell him that. Their next stop, Flourish and Blots, overwhelmed Harry in a different way. He'd never seen so many books in one place. The Centaurs preserved their knowledge through oral tradition, storytelling, and occasional rune carvings, not bound pages. I need to read all of these? He asked, dismayed. Just the ones on your list, Hagrid assured him. While Hagrid collected the required textbooks, Harry wandered the shop, drawn to a section on magical creatures. He pulled down a tome on centaurs and flipped it open, immediately frowning at what he read. This is wrong, he murmured, reading a passage that described centaurs as near humans, with limited intelligence. All wrong. Found something interesting? Asked a bushy-haired girl who'd appeared beside him. Harry snapped the book shut. False knowledge. Human arrogance. The girl blinked, taken aback by his bluntness. Oh. Well, I'm reading everything I can before term starts. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Are you starting at Hogwarts too? Harry nodded cautiously. I'm ever so excited. I was ever so surprised when I got my letter, but I've read all about Hogwarts now. Do you know what house you'll be in? I hope I'm in Gryffindor, it sounds by far the best, houses. Harry interrupted. You don't know about the houses? Hermione looked shocked. There's Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. You really should read Hogwarts, a history. The stars don't speak of houses, Harry said with a shrug. Hermione stared at him, clearly unsure how to respond. She was saved by Hagrid calling Harry's name. I must go, Harry told her. Perhaps the stars will cross our paths again. He left her standing there, utterly bewildered. The wand shop proved the most interesting stop. As soon as Harry entered Ollivander's, he felt a strange resonance, as if the very air vibrated with expectation. Good afternoon, said a soft voice. An old man with wide, pale eyes appeared from the shadows, making Hagrid jump but leaving Harry unfazed. Years of forest living had taught him to sense presences before seeing them. Ah yes, said the man. Yes, yes. I thought I'd be seeing you soon, Harry Potter. It wasn't a question. You have your mother's eyes. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself, buying her first wand. Mr. Ollivander moved closer, studying Harry's appearance with undisguised fascination. I see you've had an unconventional upbringing. I was raised by the centaur herd in the forest, Harry stated matter-of-factly. Ollivander's eyebrows shot up. Extraordinary. Truly extraordinary. And how have you been channeling your magic, Mr. Potter? Through living wood, water, and crystal, Harry answered. Never dead things. Fascinating. The centaur way, of course. But for Hogwarts, you will need a proper wand. Ollivander produced a tape measure. Which is your wand arm? Harry held out his right arm. As Ollivander measured, he explained, every Ollivander wand has a core of a powerful magical substance, Mr. Potter. We use unicorn hairs, phoenix tail feathers, and dragon heartstrings. You take these without permission? Harry asked sharply. Of course not. The unicorn hairs are collected when shed naturally. Phoenix feathers are given willingly. As for dragon heartstrings, well, those come from dragons who have already died natural deaths. Harry relaxed slightly. The centaurs had taught him deep respect for magical creatures. What followed was a long procession of wands, none of which seemed right. Some reacted violently to Harry's touch, shooting out sparks or shattering nearby objects. Others did nothing at all. Harry grew increasingly frustrated. Tricky customer, eh? Ollivander seemed delighted rather than discouraged. Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. He disappeared into the back of his shop, muttering to himself. When he returned, he held a dusty box with reverence. I wonder, an unusual combination. Holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. The moment Harry touched it, he felt a surge of warmth. Green and gold sparks shot from the end like a mini firework display. Hagrid hooped and clapped. Curious, Ollivander murmured. Most curious. What's curious? Harry asked. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother, why, its brother gave you that scar. Harry's hand reflexively went to his lightning bolt scar. Voldemort, he said quietly, using the name without fear as the centaurs always had. Ollivander flinched at the name but nodded. We can expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things, terrible, yes, but great. Harry frowned, not liking the implication, but before he could respond, Hagrid hurried him along to pay for the wand. Their final stop was Elop's Owl Emporium, where Hagrid insisted on buying Harry an owl as a birthday present. Dead useful, carry your mail and everything, Hagrid explained. Inside the dark shop, dozens of owls hooted and rustled in their cages. Harry moved among them, uncomfortable seeing the birds confined. In the back corner, a beautiful snowy owl caught his eye. Unlike the others, she watched him with intelligent calm. This one, Harry said immediately. The shopkeeper raised his eyebrows. She's a beauty, but temperamental. Hasn't let anyone touch her since she arrived. Harry approached the cage and spoke softly in the gentle tone he used with forest creatures. Would you join me as a friend, not a possession? I would give you freedom to hunt and fly, asking only for your help when needed. To the shopkeeper's astonishment, the owl hooted softly and extended her head through the cage bars to nuzzle Harry's outstretched hand. Well, I never, the man muttered. She's yours, lad. With the snowy owl's cage in hand, though Harry had immediately promised to release her from it once they left Diagon Alley, they headed back toward the Leaky Cauldron. What will ye name her? Hagrid asked. Harry considered. Hedwig, he decided. I read it in a history of magic. She was a witch who healed forest creatures. Hagrid beamed. That's a fine name. As they prepared to leave Diagon Alley, Harry looked down at his new possessions, the wand, the books, the strange school robes he'd have to wear. Then he touched the crystal necklace Epona had given him, drawing comfort from its familiar energy. I feel, between, he said softly. Not fully of either world. Hagrid placed a massive hand gently on his shoulder. You'll find your place, Harry. Everyone does at Hogwarts. Harry wasn't so sure, but he nodded anyway. The day of departure arrived faster than Harry expected. After staying at the Leaky Cauldron, an experience that had been nearly as overwhelming as Diagon Alley itself, Hagrid delivered him to King's Cross Station with instructions to find platform 9 3/4. Stick to your ticket, Harry, Hagrid said, looking anxious to leave the Muggle station. I've got to get back to Hogwarts. Dumbledore needs me. And with that, Harry found himself alone in the bustling station, dressed in ill-fitting Muggle clothes. His forest attire had drawn too many stares at the Leaky Cauldron, forcing him to purchase some second-hand Muggle garments. Hedwig hooted indignantly from her cage atop his trunk. I know, he murmured to her. Too many humans, too much noise. We'll find the train and let you out soon. He approached a station guard to ask about platform 9 3/4, only to be dismissed as a prankster. Frustrated, Harry closed his eyes and tried to sense the magic, as Ronan had taught him. Amid the chaotic energy of the station, he detected a faint magical pulse coming from between platforms 9 and 10. As he stood contemplating this, a group of red-headed people passed by, pushing similar trunks. Packed with muggles, of course, Harry's attention snapped to the plump woman who'd spoken. Witches. He followed them, observing as the oldest boy ran straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 and vanished. "Excuse me," Harry said, approaching the woman. "Could you show me how to get onto the platform?" "Yes, dear, not to worry," she said kindly. "It's Ron's first time to Hogwarts as well." She gestured to her youngest son, a tall, thin, gangling boy with freckles, big hands and feet, and a long nose. "You just walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10, she explained. "Best do it at a bit of a run if you're nervous." Harry nodded his thanks. He didn't run. Centaurs had taught him to approach magic with calm confidence, but walked deliberately toward the barrier, feeling the moment when the magic enveloped him. Suddenly, he stood before a scarlet steam engine on a platform packed with witches and wizards. The noise and crowds were overwhelming again. Harry quickly found an empty compartment at the end of the train, struggling to heave his trunk aboard. He settled in, immediately opening Hedwig's cage. The owl hopped out, nipped his finger affectionately, and perched on the seat beside him. "You don't have to stay," he told her. "You can fly to Hogwarts if you prefer." Hedwig hooted softly, seeming content to remain with him for now. The compartment door slid open, and the youngest red-headed boy entered. "Anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointing to the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." Harry gestured for him to sit. The boy stared at Harry's unusual appearance. He'd kept the crystal necklace from Epona visible over his clothes, and though he'd tied back his long hair, the feathers braided into it were still evident. "I'm Ron Weasley," the boy introduced himself. "I am Harry of the," he caught himself. "Harry Potter." Ron's eyes widened. "Blimey. Are you really? I thought Fred and George were having me on." His eyes darted to Harry's forehead. "Do you really have the, you know?" Harry pulled back his hair to reveal the lightning scar. "Wicked," Ron breathed, then seemed to really take in Harry's appearance. "But why do you look like that?" "I was raised by centaurs in the Forbidden Forest," Harry explained matter-of-factly. Ron's jaw dropped. "You're having me on." "I speak truth. The forest claimed me as an infant, and the centaur herd raised me as the starwalker of their prophecy." "Bloody hell," Ron whispered. "Wait till everyone hears about this." Before Harry could respond, the compartment door slid open again. The twins Harry had seen with Ron earlier poked their heads in. "Hey, Ron. Listen, we're going down the middle of the train. Lee Jordan's got a giant tarantula down there." "Right," mumbled Ron. The twins' eyes landed on Harry. "Who's this then?" one asked. "Harry Potter," said Ron. "And get this, he was raised by centaurs." "Brilliant joke, Ron," one twin began, but stopped when he saw Harry's serious expression and unusual appearance. "Hang on, are you serious?" Harry nodded. "I am Harry of the Stars to the centaur herd." The twins exchanged excited glances. "Wicked," they said in unison. "Fred and George Weasley," one introduced them. "Listen, we've got to see this tarantula, but we'll be back. Want to hear everything about centaur life?" After they left, Ron turned to Harry eagerly. "So is it true? Everything they say about centaurs? Do they really read the future in the stars?" "They read the movements of planets and stars to understand what is and what may come," Harry corrected. "The future is written in possibilities, not certainties." "Right," said Ron, looking slightly confused. So, what was it like growing up there? Did you live in a hut or something? I slept in a hollow beneath the great oak where the forest first brought me, Harry explained. When it rained, I sheltered in caves or under dense canopy. Blimey, Ron breathed. No bed. No house. Harry shrugged. The forest provided all I needed. I learned to hunt, to gather, to read the stars, and to channel magic through natural elements. You can do magic already? Ron asked, impressed. Harry nodded. Not with a wand until recently. The Centaurs taught me to channel forest magic through living wood, water, and crystal. He touched the crystal at his neck. It's different from your wizard magic, but connected. Their conversation was interrupted when a smiling, dimpled woman slid back their door. Anything off the cart, dears? Ron muttered something about sandwiches, but Harry stood up, curious. He'd never seen the strange colorful foods on the cart before. With some of the wizard money he still had from Gringotts, he bought some of everything. Ron stared as Harry tipped the treats onto an empty seat. Hungry, are you? Curious, Harry corrected. I've never eaten human sweets. Human. Oh, right. Centaurs. Ron pulled out a lumpy package. I've got corned beef. Mom always forgets I hate corned beef. Here, Harry offered, holding out a pumpkin pasty. In the forest, we share food freely. Take what you want. Ron hesitated, then grinned. Thanks. As they ate their way through Harry's pastries and candies, Ron explained each treat. Harry found chocolate frogs particularly fascinating, especially the wizard cards inside. The concept of moving photographs was entirely new to him. So this is Dumbledore? Harry asked, studying the card. Don't tell me you'd never heard of Dumbledore, said Ron. Can I have a frog? I might get Agrippa, thanks. As the countryside flew past the window, their conversation continued. Ron explained about his 5 older brothers and younger sister, life at the burrow, and his hand-me-down wand and pet rat Scabbers. Harry found it all fascinating. Family structures among humans were so different from the centaur herd, where all adults shared responsibility for all foals. The compartment door slid open yet again, revealing the bushy-haired girl Harry had met in Flourish and Blots, now wearing her Hogwarts robes. Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one, she said. Then her eyes fell on Harry. Oh, it's you. The boy from the bookshop who talks about stars. Hermione, Harry acknowledged with a nod. She stared at him more openly now. You look different. Why do you have feathers in your hair? Markers of age ceremonies, Harry explained. Among the centaur herd. Hermione's eyes widened. Centaur herd? You mean you actually live with centaurs? But that's impossible. Hogwarts, a history says centaurs are extremely territorial and rarely interact with humans. The stars decreed it, Harry said simply. Ron snorted. He's Harry Potter, if you can believe it. Harry Potter? Hermione gasped. I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and, those books lie, Harry interrupted firmly. They know nothing of me or my life. Hermione looked taken aback. But they're published books. Written by humans who never sought me in the forest, Harry pointed out. How could they know truth? This logical point left Hermione momentarily speechless. Well, I suppose that makes sense. But you're really Harry Potter. And you really lived with centaurs. Her academic curiosity was clearly overwhelming her. That's absolutely fascinating. What was their astronomical knowledge like? Did they teach you their magic? I've read they have their own form of wandless magic, but it's never been properly documented. Blimey, do you ever stop for breath? Ron asked. Hermione flushed. I'm just interested in, you ask many questions, Harry observed. The Centaurs say wisdom comes from listening more than speaking. Her blush deepened. I'm sorry. I'm just excited to learn. Harry's expression softened. A worthy desire. Perhaps we will speak more at Hogwarts. For now, we have not seen a toad. Right. Well, you two better change into your robes. I expect we'll be arriving soon. She turned to leave, then hesitated. You've got dirt on your nose, by the way, she told Ron, then disappeared. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it, Ron grumbled, rubbing his nose. As the train continued north, darkness fell. Harry gazed out the window at the stars, picking out constellations and remembering Ronan's teachings. Longing for the forest struck him suddenly, sharp and painful. You all right? Ron asked, noticing his expression. The forest calls to me, Harry murmured. I've never been so far from it. Ron looked uncomfortable, clearly unsure how to respond to such an unusual homesickness. We'll be at Hogwarts soon, he offered. The castle's right by the forest, isn't it? You'll be able to visit. Harry nodded, grateful for Ron's attempt at understanding. Yes. That helps. A voice echoed through the train, we will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train, it will be taken to the school separately. Harry reluctantly changed into his school robes, finding the material restrictive compared to his forest garments. He kept Epona's crystal outside the robes, needing its familiar energy. The train slowed and finally stopped. People pushed their way toward the doors and out onto a tiny, dark platform. Harry heard a familiar voice, Fur's years. Fur's years over here. All right there, Harry. Hagrid's big hairy face beamed over the sea of heads. Harry raised a hand in greeting, relieved to see someone he recognized. Come on, follow me, any more Fur's years? Mind your step, now. They followed Hagrid down a steep, narrow path that felt wonderfully familiar to Harry, it reminded him of forest trails. The path opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a high mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. No more and 4 to a boat. Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were joined in their boat by Neville, the boy who'd lost his toad, and Hermione, who was practically vibrating with excitement. As the boats glided across the smooth lake, Harry trailed his fingers in the water, feeling the magic pulsing beneath the surface. The castle grew closer, looming overhead as they sailed toward a cliff face. Heads down, yelled Hagrid as the first boats reached the cliff. They were carried through a curtain of ivy that hid a wide opening in the cliff face. They drifted along a dark tunnel until they reached a kind of underground harbor, where they clambered out onto rocks and pebbles. Oi, you there! Is this your toad? Said Hagrid, checking the boats as people climbed out. Trevor, cried Neville blissfully, holding out his hands. They walked up a passageway in the rock, coming out at last onto smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. Harry immediately felt the ancient magic of the place, different from the forest's wild energy, but powerful in its own way. Up a flight of stone steps they went, crowding around the huge, oak front door. Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times. The door swung open at once. A tall, black-haired witch in emerald green robes stood there. Harry recognized her instantly, Professor McGonagall, one of the witches he'd saved from the Acromantula 2 years ago. Her eyes swept over the first years and stopped, widening slightly, when they landed on Harry. A flicker of recognition passed over her face, but she maintained her stern expression. The Fur's years, Professor McGonagall, said Hagrid. Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here. She pulled the door wide, revealing an entrance hall so big that Harry thought the entire centaur herd could have galloped through it comfortably. They followed Professor McGonagall across the flagged stone floor and into a small, empty chamber off the hall. Welcome to Hogwarts, said Professor McGonagall. The start of term banquet will begin shortly, but before you take your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses. As she explained about the 4 houses, Harry found his attention wandering. The castle's magic pressed against his senses, ancient and complex. He closed his eyes briefly, centering himself as Firenze had taught him. I shall return when we are ready for you, Professor McGonagall concluded. Please wait quietly. As she left, whispers broke out among the first years. How exactly do they sort us into houses? Harry asked Ron. Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking. Harry doubted it would be painful, that didn't align with the castle's welcoming energy he sensed. He was more concerned about which house would accept someone raised by centaurs. Suddenly, about 20 ghosts streamed through the back wall. Pearly white and slightly transparent, they glided across the room talking to one another, hardly glancing at the first years. They seemed to be arguing. While the other first years gasped or shrank back, Harry watched with interest. The centaurs had taught him about death as a natural transition, nothing to be feared. New students, said one ghost, smiling around at them. About to be sorted, I suppose. A few people nodded mutely. Hope to see you in Hufflepuff, said the ghost. My old house, you know. Move along now, said Professor McGonagall's sharp voice, returning to the chamber. The sorting ceremony's about to start. One by one, the ghosts floated away through the opposite wall. Now, form a line, Professor McGonagall told the first years, and follow me. Harry got into line behind Ron, with Hermione behind him, and they walked out of the chamber, back across the hall, and through a pair of double doors into the Great Hall. Harry had never imagined such a strange and splendid place. It was lit by thousands of candles floating in midair over 4 long tables, where the rest of the students were sitting. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers sat. Professor McGonagall led the first years up here, so that they came to a halt in a line facing the other students, with the teachers behind them. Harry looked upward and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. He heard Hermione whisper, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history." The sky roof shows true positions, Harry murmured, studying the constellations. Accurate for teaching. Hermione looked at him in surprise. You can tell that just by looking. Before Harry could answer, Professor McGonagall silently placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool she put a pointed wizard's hat, patched, frayed, and extremely dirty. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then the hat twitched. A rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing. Harry listened to the song with fascination as the hat described the 4 houses. When it finished, the whole hall burst into applause. It bowed to each of the 4 tables and then became quite still again. So we've just got to try on the hat. Ron whispered to Harry. I'll kill Fred, he was going on about wrestling a troll. Professor McGonagall stepped forward holding a long roll of parchment. When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted. Harry watched as, one by one, his fellow first years were sorted. Hermione went to Gryffindor, as did Neville. The pale boy from Madame Malkin's, whose name turned out to be Draco Malfoy, went to Slytherin. Finally, Potter, Harry. As Harry stepped forward, whispers broke out like little hissing fires all over the hall. Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter. Harry walked to the stool with the calm, measured pace the centaurs had taught him. He sat down, back straight, as Professor McGonagall placed the hat on his head. It fell down over his eyes, blocking his view of the now staring hall. Said a small voice in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. Oh my, raised by centaurs. How extraordinary. Never sorted one like you before. You have courage, certainly, and a fine mind. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and such a unique blend of magics. But where to put you? Harry gripped the edges of the stool, thinking, I wish to learn both worlds, to walk between them as the prophecy foretells. Prophecy, said the small voice. Interesting, well, if you're to bridge worlds, better be Gryffindor. Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked toward the Gryffindor table, where he was met with the loudest cheer yet. Percy Weasley got up and shook his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins yelled, We got Potter! We got Potter! As Harry sat down, he could see the high table properly now. Hagrid gave him a thumbs up. In the center of the high table, in a large gold chair, sat Albus Dumbledore, instantly recognizable from his chocolate frog card. The headmaster's silver hair was the only thing in the whole hall that shone as brightly as the ghost's. Harry caught Dumbledore's eye and received a small nod. After Ron was also sorted into Gryffindor and joined Harry at the table, Dumbledore got to his feet. He beamed at the students, his arms opened wide, as if nothing could have pleased him more than to see them all there. Welcome, he said. Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words, nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. Thank you. He sat back down. Everybody clapped and cheered. Harry didn't know whether to laugh or not. Is he, a bit mad? He asked Percy uncertainly. Mad? Said Percy airily. He's a genius. Best wizard in the world. But yes, he is a bit mad. Potatoes, Harry. Harry's mouth fell open. The dishes in front of him were now piled with food. He had never seen so many things he liked to eat on one table: roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops and lamb chops, sausages, bacon and steak, boiled potatoes, roast potatoes, fries, Yorkshire pudding, peas, carrots, gravy, ketchup, and, for some strange reason, peppermint humbugs. The Centaurs ate simply, mostly gathered plants, nuts, and berries, with occasional hunted meat. This abundance seemed wasteful to Harry, but his hunger won out. He helped himself to a bit of everything except the peppermints and began to eat. It was all delicious. That does look good, said the ghost in the ruff sadly, watching Harry cut up his steak. Can't you? I haven't eaten for nearly 500 years, said the ghost. I don't need to, of course, but one does miss it. I don't think I've introduced myself. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington at your service. Resident Ghost of Gryffindor Tower. I know who you are, said Ron suddenly. My brothers told me about you, you're nearly headless Nick. I would prefer you to call me Sir Nicholas de Mimsy, nearly headless. How can you be nearly headless? Seamus Finnegan asked. Sir Nicholas looked extremely miffed. Like this, he said irritably. He seized his left ear and pulled. His whole head swung off his neck and fell onto his shoulder as if it was on a hinge. While the other first years gasped or looked away, Harry met the ghost's eyes with respectful interest. The transition between worlds did not go smoothly for you, he observed. Sir Nicholas looked surprised as he flipped his head back onto his neck. Indeed not, young man. A most astute observation. Death is but a doorway between realms, Harry continued, quoting Ronan's teachings. Your spirit lingers here with purpose. The ghost stared at him. You are an unusual child, Mr. Potter. Harry was raised by centaurs. Fred Weasley announced to the table at large, having overheard. In the Forbidden Forest. A hush fell over the nearby Gryffindors, all eyes turning to Harry. Centaurs? Seamus Finnegan asked incredulously. Like, half-horse people. Is that why you've got feathers in your hair? Asked Lavender Brown, leaning forward to look. The centaur herd took me in when the forest claimed me as an infant, Harry explained, uncomfortable with the attention but determined to represent his upbringing accurately. They raised me as the Starwalker of their prophecy. Prophecy? Percy repeated, looking skeptical. What sort of prophecy? Harry hesitated. The Centaurs' prophecies were sacred knowledge, not to be shared casually with outsiders. It is not mine to reveal fully, he said. But it speaks of one who walks between worlds, forest and stone, centaur and human. Wicked, breathed Dean Thomas. So you actually lived in the forest? Like, sleeping outside and everything? Asked Katie Bell from further down the table. Harry nodded. The forest provides all one needs, if you know how to listen. But what about you-know-who and all that? Pressed Seamus. I thought you lived with Muggles after he tried to kill you. That was Dumbledore's intention, Harry acknowledged. But the forest had other plans. The conversation might have continued indefinitely if not for Dumbledore rising to his feet again. The hall fell silent. Just a few more words now that we are all fed and watered. I have a few start-of-term notices to give you. First years should note that the forest on the grounds is forbidden to all pupils. Harry frowned at this. Forbidden? The forest had been his home for 11 years. And finally, Dumbledore continued, I must tell you that this year, the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. Harry exchanged glances with Ron. That sounded ominous. And now, before we go to bed, let us sing the school song, cried Dumbledore. The school bellowed the song, everyone finishing at different times. Finally, only the Weasley twins were left singing along to a very slow funeral march. Dumbledore conducted their last few lines with his wand and, when they had finished, he was one of those who clapped loudest. Ah, music, he said, wiping his eyes. A magic beyond all we do here. And now, bedtime. Off you trot. The Gryffindor first years followed Percy through the chattering crowds, out of the great hall, and up the marble staircase. Harry's legs were heavy with exhaustion, and even the moving staircases and hidden doorways couldn't fully capture his attention. He was too busy trying to process everything he'd experienced today. They climbed more staircases until they reached a portrait of a very fat woman in a pink silk dress. Password, she said. Caput Draconis, said Percy, and the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall. They all scrambled through it and found themselves in the Gryffindor common room, a cozy, round room full of squashy armchairs. Percy directed the girls through one door to their dormitory and the boys through another. At the top of a spiral staircase, they were in one of the towers, they found their beds, 5 four-posters hung with deep red, velvet curtains. Their trunks had already been brought up. Too tired to talk much, they pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. Harry, however, didn't immediately lie down. He went to the window, pushed it open, and looked out at the night sky. From here, he could see the dark mass of the forbidden forest stretching out below. His heart ached with longing. You all right, Harry? Ron asked sleepily from his bed. I need the stars, Harry said simply. Understanding somehow, Ron nodded toward the window. Well, there they are. Not going anywhere, are they? Harry smiled faintly. No. They remain constant. He climbed into his bed, the first real bed he'd ever slept in, and found it uncomfortably soft after years of sleeping on forest ground. Sighing, he took his blanket and pillow, arranged them on the floor beside the bed, and lay down there instead. What are you doing? Asked Seamus, noticing. Sleeping as I'm accustomed to, Harry replied. The other boys exchanged looks but said nothing more. As they drifted off to sleep, Harry lay awake longer, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the castle. Different from the forest's nighttime chorus of creatures and whispering leaves, but not entirely unwelcoming. I am here, Star Walker, he whispered to himself in the Centaur tongue. Walking the path between worlds. Eventually, lulled by the distant hooting of owls from the Olary, he slept. Harry's first week at Hogwarts was a crash course in human wizard society. Everything from the structured schedules to the confined indoor spaces challenged his forest-raised sensibilities. The castle itself, with its shifting staircases and hidden passages, was both fascinating and frustrating. Most challenging were the social customs. Harry had grown up in the straightforward Centaur society where status was clear and communication direct. The human tendency toward sarcasm, hidden meanings, and social games baffled him. "You can't just tell Professor Snape his teaching methods are inefficient," Hermione hissed after a particularly disastrous potions class where Harry had done exactly that. "He's a professor." "Truth is truth," Harry replied with a shrug. "Why hide it?" Ron snickered. "Wish I had your guts, mate. Did you see his face? Thought he'd explode." Indeed, Professor Snape had seemed to develop a particular dislike for Harry, though whether for his blunt centaur-like honesty or for some other reason wasn't clear. Harry also struggled with the wand-based magic taught in classes. While he picked up the theoretical concepts quickly, channeling magic through a wand felt restrictive after years of using natural elements. "You need to focus, Mr. Potter," squeaked Professor Flitwick after Harry had accidentally shattered a window instead of levitating a feather. "Your magic is powerful but wild. The Centaurs teach that magic flows like water," Harry tried to explain. "Wands dam the river." This earned him curious looks from his classmates, who found his different perspective on magic alternately fascinating and weird. Herbology proved his strongest subject. Professor Sprout was delighted by his intimate knowledge of plants and their properties. 10 points to Gryffindor, Mr. Potter," she exclaimed when he correctly identified a rare moonflower and explained its cycles. "I've rarely seen such natural understanding in a first year." Transfiguration, however, posed particular difficulties. The Centaurs considered transforming one thing into another to be somewhat disrespectful of its true nature. "Is there something wrong with my match, Mr. Potter?" Professor McGonagall asked when she noticed him staring at it instead of attempting to turn it into a needle. "I am asking its permission," Harry explained, drawing stares from his classmates. McGonagall's expression softened slightly. "While I appreciate your respect for magical ethics, Mr. Potter, I assure you that basic transfiguration does not harm the object's essential nature. However, if it makes you more comfortable, you may continue your conversation." Some students snickered, but Harry nodded seriously and continued his silent communication with the match. When he finally attempted the spell, the match transformed perfectly into a shining silver needle. "Well done," McGonagall said, looking genuinely impressed. "Perhaps there is something to be said for your method after all." By the end of the week, Harry had become something of a Hogwarts celebrity, not just for being the boy who lived, but for his unusual upbringing and behavior. Students from all houses would stop to stare as he passed in the corridors, whispering about the wild Potter boy with his feathered hair and strange ways. Some, like Draco Malfoy and his Slytherin cronies, were openly hostile. "Look, it's the forest freak," Malfoy called out during break one day. "Learned to use a fork yet, Potter, or do you still eat with your hands like an animal?" Harry merely gave him a pitying look. "The Centaurs say those who mock others reveal only their own fears." Malfoy flushed angrily. "I'm not afraid of you." "Not me," Harry corrected gently. "Your fear is of difference. Of not understanding." This philosophical response left Malfoy momentarily speechless, allowing Harry and his friends to walk away. "That was brilliant!" Ron exclaimed. "You completely confused him." Hermione looked thoughtful. "Do the Centaurs really say that? About mocking revealing fears?" Harry nodded. "They have many such teachings. Wisdom accumulated over centuries of observation." "You should write them down," Hermione suggested eagerly. "I've never read a first-hand account of Centaur philosophy." Throughout all this, Harry felt an increasing pull toward the Forbidden Forest. Each night, he would stand at his dormitory window, gazing out at the dark tree-line, feeling homesick for the centaur herd and the familiar rhythms of forest life. On Friday night, a week after his arrival at Hogwarts, Harry made a decision. After his roommates fell asleep, he quietly dressed, slipped the crystal necklace from Epona over his head, and crept down to the common room. To his surprise, he found Hermione sitting in an armchair by the dying fire, a massive book open on her lap. "What are you doing up?" she asked, startled. "I must visit the forest," Harry said simply. "The stars aligned tonight for an important ceremony. I promised Firenze I would return when possible." Hermione's eyes widened. "But you can't. It's after hours, and the forest is forbidden to students." "Not to me," Harry replied. "It's my home." "But you'll get in trouble. You'll lose house points." Harry considered this. House points still seemed like an arbitrary system to him, but he understood they mattered to the other students. "I will be careful. But I must go, my word to the herd is sacred." Hermione bit her lip, clearly torn between her respect for rules and her growing friendship with Harry. At least take Ron with you. So someone knows where you are." "Ron sleeps deeply," Harry pointed out. "And he would not understand the ceremony." "Then I'll come with you," Hermione said suddenly, shutting her book. Harry looked at her in surprise. "You would break rules." Well," she flustered for a moment, then squared her shoulders. "I'm curious about centaurs. Academically. And if something happens to you, someone should know." Harry studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. But you must promise to follow my guidance and show proper respect to the herd." "Of course," she agreed eagerly, already rising from her chair. They made their way through the castle with surprising ease. Harry seemed to instinctively sense when to hide from patrolling prefects or professors, moving with the silent grace he'd learned as a forest hunter. Hermione followed his lead, trying her best to muffle her footsteps. Outside, the night was clear and cool, stars blazing overhead in patterns Harry read as easily as Hermione read books. They crossed the grounds quickly, Harry's pace picking up as they neared the forest edge. "Are you sure this is safe?" Hermione whispered as they reached the first trees. "There are supposed to be all sorts of dangerous creatures in here." "The forest creatures know me," Harry assured her. "Stay close." As they moved deeper into the trees, Harry visibly relaxed. His posture became more natural, his movements more fluid. He occasionally reached out to touch tree trunks or leaves, like greeting old friends. "You really do belong here," Hermione observed quietly. Harry smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "Yes. The stone nest has its wonders, but this." He gestured around. "This is home." They walked for nearly an hour, following paths invisible to Hermione but apparently clear to Harry. Finally, they reached a large clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center stood a solitary figure, a Palomino centaur with white blonde hair. "Firenze!" Harry called out, breaking into a run. The centaur turned, his serious face breaking into a smile. "Starwalker. You have come." Harry reached Firenze and pressed his forehead briefly against the centaurs in their traditional greeting. "I promised I would." Firenze's eyes shifted to Hermione, who hung back nervously at the edge of the clearing. "You have brought a human friend. This is Hermione Granger," Harry introduced. "She is curious about centaur ways and wished to ensure my safety." Firenze studied her with penetrating blue eyes. "Approach, young one." Hermione stepped forward hesitantly. "Hello, sir. It's an honor to meet you." Such formality, Firenze noted with amusement. "I am Firenze of the forest herd. You may use my name." "Thank you." "Firenze," Hermione said, looking both terrified and thrilled. "The others will arrive soon," Firenze told Harry. "Megorian was uncertain about your participation tonight, given your new life among humans. But Ronan convinced him that the Starwalker's presence is essential for the autumn equinox ceremony." Harry nodded. "I would not miss it. How fares the herd?" As Firenze updated Harry on herd news, Hermione watched in fascination. The Harry she saw here was different from the one at Hogwarts, more confident, more at ease, speaking with a fluid grace that seemed natural rather than the careful, measured way he spoke among humans. Gradually, more centaurs arrived, emerging from the trees in small groups. Each greeted Harry with varying degrees of warmth, from Ronan's affectionate headpress to Bane's curt nod. They regarded Hermione with curiosity, suspicion, or indifference. A young female centaur broke from the group and cantered over to Harry, practically tackling him in her enthusiasm. "Star Walker. You came." "Layla," Harry greeted her warmly. "I said I would. The forest is too quiet without you," she complained. "No one to climb trees with or explore the hidden caves." Hermione watched this interaction with interest, seeing a playful side to Harry she hadn't witnessed at school. Megorian, the herd leader, finally approached. "The stars align, herdmates. It is time to begin." The centaurs formed a circle in the clearing, with spaces left for Harry and, to Hermione's surprise, herself. "The human may observe," Megorian stated, noticing her uncertainty. "The Star Walker vouches for her, and this ceremony is not our most sacred." Harry guided Hermione to her place in the circle, whispering, "Stand tall, look upward when they do, and remain silent unless addressed directly." The ceremony that followed was unlike anything Hermione had ever read about. The centaurs turned their faces to the stars, chanting in a language she didn't recognize. Harry joined in, his young voice blending with the deeper tones of the adult centaurs. Then Ronan stepped into the center of the circle, carrying a wooden bowl filled with a shimmering liquid. He spoke in English now, his voice resonant in the night air. "As autumn balances day and night, so must we balance our understanding. The stars reveal the path of the coming season, a time of transition, of preparation for darkness." He passed the bowl to Harry, who drank from it before returning it to Ronan. The bowl made its way around the circle, each centaur taking a sip. When it reached Hermione, she hesitated. "It is only water from the sacred spring, infused with moonlight," Harry assured her quietly. "It will not harm you." Trusting him, Hermione took a small sip. The liquid tasted like ordinary water but seemed to sparkle inside her as she swallowed. The ceremony continued with readings of star positions, discussions of their meanings, and predictions for the coming season. Hermione found herself entranced, not just by the ritual itself but by the centaurs' sophisticated astronomical knowledge. Their understanding of celestial movements far exceeded what she'd read in astronomy books. Finally, the formal portion ended, and the gathering became more social. The centaurs broke into smaller groups, some continuing to discuss star patterns while others shared news. Layla pulled Harry away to show him something, leaving Hermione standing awkwardly alone. To her surprise, Ronan approached her. "You are the knowledge seeker," he stated, not a question. "Harry has mentioned you in his star messages." "Star messages?" Hermione asked curiously. Ronan gestured toward the sky. "When stars align in specific patterns, they create pathways for magic to travel. The Star Walker has learned to send simple messages along these pathways. He told us of two humans who have shown him friendship, the fire-haired boy and the knowledge-seeking girl." "Oh," Hermione said, touched that Harry had mentioned her. I'm honored." "You have questions," Ronan observed. "Ask them. Whether I answer depends on the stars' guidance." Emboldened, Hermione asked about centaur astronomy, their understanding of magic, and their prophecies concerning Harry. Ronan answered some questions directly, others with frustrating vagueness, and declined to address the prophecy at all, saying only that, the Star Walker's path crosses many streams. When Harry returned with Layla, they found Hermione deep in conversation with Firenze about the differences between centaur and human magical theory. Channeling magic through living connections rather than fashion tools, Firenze was explaining. "The wand severs magic from its source, our method maintains the connection." "That's fascinating," Hermione exclaimed. "It's like the difference between damming a river to control its flow versus working with its natural current." "Precisely," Firenze nodded, pleased by her understanding. You speak like a centaur already, Harry observed with a smile. The gathering continued for another hour before Megorian announced it was time for them to depart. The centaurs had other rituals to perform before dawn, ones not meant for human eyes. You must return to the stone nest, Firenze told Harry. But know that you are welcome in our territory whenever the stars guide you here. Harry pressed his forehead to Firenze's in farewell. I will return for the winter solstice ceremony. Saying goodbye to Layla proved more difficult. The young centaur seemed reluctant to let Harry leave. Promise you won't forget us, she insisted. I could never forget, Harry assured her. The forest is in my blood now, Layla. As they prepared to leave, Megorian approached Hermione. Knowledge seeker, he addressed her formally. What you have witnessed tonight is not to be recorded in human books or shared with those who would not understand. Do you accept this condition? Hermione straightened her spine. I do, sir. I won't betray your trust or Harry's. Megorian studied her for a moment, then nodded. The stars show wisdom in you, despite your youth. Guard the Star Walker when he walks among your kind. His path is complicated. I will, Hermione promised, understanding the significance of being entrusted with such a responsibility. Harry led her back through the forest, moving even more confidently than before. As they walked, Hermione bombarded him with questions about centaur culture, which he answered patiently. I never imagined they'd be so sophisticated, she admitted. The books describe them as primitive and isolationist. Human books, Harry corrected. Written without true knowledge. The centaurs prefer it that way, they value their privacy. I can understand why, Hermione nodded. Thank you for bringing me, Harry. It was incredible. You showed proper respect, Harry said, which she understood was high praise from him. The herd accepted you. That is rare. They reached the edge of the forest just as false dawn began to lighten the eastern sky. The castle loomed ahead, windows still dark. We should hurry, Hermione whispered. It'll be morning soon. Harry paused, looking back at the forest with longing. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice, leaving the herd. The Star Walker must walk between worlds, Hermione quoted Firenze's words from earlier. You're doing exactly what you're meant to do, Harry. Harry looked surprised, then pleased. You understand. They made it back to Gryffindor Tower without being caught, slipping through the portrait hole just as the first early risers were coming down for breakfast. Ron found them sitting by the fire, Harry teaching Hermione a centaur constellation tracking technique using hand positions. Where've you two been? He asked suspiciously. And why do you have leaves in your hair, Hermione? Hermione blushed, reaching up to find that indeed, a small leaf had tangled itself in her bushy hair. We visited the forest, Harry said straightforwardly. For the Centaur autumn equinox ceremony. Ron's jaw dropped. You went into the forbidden forest. At night? And took Hermione. It was educational, Hermione defended primly, though her eyes sparkled with excitement. And perfectly safe with Harry. Bloody hell, Ron muttered. Next time, wake me up too, will you? I can't believe I missed seeing real centaurs. Harry smiled, more relaxed than he'd been all week. The winter solstice comes in December. Perhaps you can join us then. With his first connection back to the forest established, Harry found it easier to navigate Hogwarts life. He still slept on the floor beside his bed, still struggled with wand magic, and still baffled his classmates with his direct communication style. But now he had a bridge between his two worlds, and friends who were beginning to understand both sides of who he was. The Star Walker was finding his path. Late September brought the first flying lessons for the first years. The Gryffindors would be learning with the Slytherins, a prospect that pleased no one except perhaps Madame Hooch, who seemed to enjoy the competitive tension between the houses. Flying on dead wood, Harry muttered as they headed down to the grounds for their lesson. Unnatural. But brilliant. Ron enthused. You'll love it once you try, Harry. Harry looked unconvinced. The Centaurs had taught him to respect his own 2 feet and the earth beneath them. Purposely leaving the ground seemed questionable at best. The Slytherins were already there when they arrived, standing beside 2 neat rows of school brooms lying on the ground. Draco Malfoy was holding court, bragging about his flying exploits back home. Almost hit a Muggle helicopter once, he was saying to an attentive Crabbe and Goyle. Father was furious, of course, but impressed with my flying skills. That seems dangerous and disrespectful, Harry commented as he walked past. Both to the helicopter people and the laws of your society. Malfoy flushed. Nobody asked your opinion, Potter. I'm surprised they even let you near a broom. Don't Centaurs think flying is beneath them? Or are you scared you'll fall off without 4 legs to keep you stable? Several Slytherins snickered, but Harry merely shrugged. Centaurs respect natural abilities. Birds fly. Humans and centaurs walk. Each has its purpose. Well, some of us have evolved beyond walking everywhere, Malfoy sneered. Before Harry could respond, Madame Hooch arrived. Well, what are you all waiting for? She barked. Everyone stand by a broomstick. Come on, hurry up. Harry positioned himself between Ron and Hermione, looking down dubiously at the aged school broom. Stick out your right hand over your broom, Madame Hooch instructed, and say, up. Up, everyone shouted. Harry's broom jumped into his hand immediately, one of the few that did. Hermione's merely rolled over, and Neville's didn't move at all. Interesting, Harry murmured, studying the worn wooden handle now vibrating slightly in his grip. He could feel magic coursing through it, old magic, layered with years of use. Perhaps there was more to these objects than he'd first thought. Madame Hooch showed them how to mount their brooms without sliding off the end, then walked up and down the rows correcting grips. Harry was pleased when she told Malfoy he'd been doing it wrong for years. Now, when I blow my whistle, you kick off from the ground, hard, said Madame Hooch. Keep your broom steady, rise a few feet, and then come straight back down by leaning forward slightly. On my whistle, 3, 2, but Neville, nervous and jumpy, pushed off before the whistle touched Madame Hooch's lips. He rose straight up like a cork shot out of a bottle. Come back, boy. Madame Hooch shouted, but Neville was rising too fast. 20 feet, 30 feet. Harry saw his scared white face look down at the ground falling away, saw him gasp, slip sideways off the broom and, Harry didn't think. He acted on pure instinct, channeling magic as Firenze had taught him. With a quick gesture, he sent a wave of forest magic, the kind he'd used to cushion falls from trees as a child, toward the spot where Neville was plummeting. The air itself seemed to thicken, slowing Neville's descent. It wasn't enough to stop him completely. Harry's wandless forest magic wasn't that powerful, but it reduced the impact significantly. Instead of a bone-shattering crash, Neville hit the ground with a thud and a grunt. Everyone rushed over as Madame Hooch bent over Neville, her face as white as his. Wrist looks sprained, not broken, she muttered. Lucky boy. She helped him to his feet, then turned to Harry with a piercing look. Potter, what did you just do? Harry met her gaze steadily. Forest magic. To slow his fall. Wandless magic, she asked sharply. The Centaurs taught me to channel magic without wands, Harry explained. It's not as precise or powerful as wizard magic, but it connects directly to natural elements. Madame Hooch studied him for a long moment, then nodded curtly. 20 points to Gryffindor for quick thinking, Potter. But next time, alert a professor before attempting such magic. Now, I'm taking Mr. Longbottom to the hospital wing. You are all to keep your feet firmly on the ground while I'm gone. Anyone caught flying will be out of Hogwarts before they can say, Quidditch. As soon as she was out of earshot with Neville, Malfoy burst into laughter. Did you see his face, the great lump? Shut up, Malfoy, snapped Parvati Patil. Boo, sticking up for Longbottom, said Pansy Parkinson. Never thought you'd like fat little crybabies, Parvati. Look. Malfoy darted forward and snatched something from the grass. It's that stupid thing Longbottom's Gran sent him. A small glass ball glittered in the sun as he held it up. Give it here, Malfoy, said Harry quietly, stepping forward. Everyone fell silent. I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to find. How about up a tree? That belongs to another, Harry said, his voice taking on the formal cadence he used when speaking Centaur ethics. Taking it dishonors you and breaks the bonds of community. Malfoy sneered. Fancy words from a boy raised by horses. If you want it, come and get it. He mounted his broom and took off, rising quickly into the air. He hadn't been lying, he could fly well. Harry, no. Hermione shouted. You heard what Madame Hooch said. Besides, you've never even, but Harry was already mounting the broom, a determined expression on his face. To everyone's surprise, he rose steadily into the air, as if he'd been flying all his life. The broom responded to his slightest touch, seeming almost eager beneath him. At first, the sensation disoriented him, being separated from the earth felt wrong, almost sacrilegious according to Centaur teaching. But there was something else too, a rush of freedom, of exhilaration. For the first time, Harry understood what birds must feel, soaring above the forest canopy. He turned his broomstick sharply to face Malfoy in midair. The Slytherin looked stunned. Give it back, Harry called, or you will fall. Oh, yeah, said Malfoy, trying to sneer, but looking worried. Harry leaned forward slightly, focusing on the connection between himself, the broom, and the air around them. The broom shot toward Malfoy like an arrow, causing the blonde boy to veer out of the way just in time. No bodyguards up here, Malfoy, Harry observed calmly, circling higher. Catch it if you can, then. Malfoy shouted, throwing the glass ball high into the air before streaking back toward the ground. Harry saw the ball rise and then start to fall. In a flash of movement that drew gasps from the watchers below, he pointed his broom handle down and went into a steep dive, accelerating toward the falling Remembrall. Wind whistled in his ears as the ground rushed up to meet him, but Harry felt no fear, only focus, like when hunting in the forest. Just before hitting the ground, he pulled up his broom handle with one hand and caught the glass ball with the other, tumbling gently onto the grass with the Remembrall clutched safely to his chest. Harry Potter. His heart sank. Professor McGonagall was running toward them, her face a mask of shock. Never, in all my time at Hogwarts, she seemed almost speechless with shock, her glasses flashing furiously. How dare you, might have broken your neck, it wasn't his fault, Professor, began Ron. Be quiet, Mr. Weasley. But Malfoy, that's enough, Miss Granger. Potter, follow me, now. Harry got to his feet, handing the Remembrall to Hermione for safekeeping. As he followed McGonagall back to the castle, he maintained the dignified posture the Centaurs had taught him, accepting whatever consequences would come. He'd acted to protect another's property, the Centaurs would consider that honorable, regardless of broken rules. To his surprise, McGonagall didn't lead him to her office but to a classroom, where she asked Professor Flitwick if she could borrow wood for a moment. Harry wondered if wood was some sort of punishment implement, but soon a burly fifth-year boy emerged, looking confused. Potter, this is Oliver Wood. Wood, I've found you a seeker. Wood's expression changed from puzzlement to delight. Are you serious, Professor? Absolutely, said McGonagall. The boy's a natural. Was that your first time on a broomstick, Potter? Harry nodded. The Centaurs consider flying unnatural. I've never tried it before today. This seemed to impress them even more. McGonagall was actually smiling. He caught that thing in his hand after a 50-foot dive, she told Wood. Didn't even scratch himself. Charlie Weasley couldn't have done it. Wood circled Harry, examining him like a prize specimen. He's got the build for a seeker too, light, speedy. We'll need to get him a decent broom, Professor, a Nimbus 2000 or a Clean Sweep 7, I'd say. I shall speak to Professor Dumbledore and see if we can bend the first-year rule. Heaven knows, we need a better team than last year. Flattened in that last match by Slytherin, I couldn't look Severus Snape in the face for weeks. Professor McGonagall peered sternly at Harry over her glasses. I want to hear you're training hard, Potter, or I may change my mind about punishing you. Then she suddenly smiled. Your father would have been proud. He was an excellent Quidditch player himself. Harry stared at her. His father had played this game. The Centaurs had told him little about James Potter beyond his sacrifice to protect Harry and Lily. This new connection to his human heritage caught him off guard. What is a Seeker? He asked Wood after McGonagall left. And what is Quidditch? Wood's jaw dropped. You don't know what Quidditch is? At all? Harry shook his head. The Centaurs don't play human games. Right, Wood said, looking dazed. Well, Quidditch is only the greatest sport in the wizarding world. He launched into an enthusiastic explanation of the game, the positions, and the Seeker's special role. When Harry finally left to rejoin his friends for dinner, his mind was spinning. He'd come to Hogwarts expecting to learn human magic, but instead found himself being inducted into human culture in ways he hadn't anticipated: strange foods, odd sleeping arrangements, peculiar social customs, and now sports played on flying broomsticks. Ron and Hermione were waiting for him in the Great Hall, both looking anxious. You're not expelled? Ron asked immediately. Harry shook his head. McGonagall wants me to play a game called Quidditch. As a Seeker. You're joking. Ron's shout drew stares from nearby students. First years never, you must be the youngest house player in about a century, Harry finished, reciting what Wood had told him. I start training next week. But I thought you said flying was unnatural, Hermione pointed out, looking confused. Harry considered this. It is, according to Centaur teaching. But he struggled to express the feeling he'd had in the air. When I flew, I felt connected to something. Not the earth, but the sky itself. Perhaps there are different types of natural connections. That's very philosophical, Hermione said, but aren't you worried about breaking the rules? And it sounds dangerous. The Centaurs taught me to face danger with calm preparedness, Harry replied. I will learn this game as I would learn anything else, by understanding its nature. It's brilliant, that's what it is, Ron declared. Wait till Malfoy finds out. As if summoned by his name, Malfoy appeared behind Harry, flanked by Crabbe and Goyle. Having a last meal, Potter? When are you getting the train back to your forest friends? I am not leaving, Harry said simply. Though you nearly did. Flying away was not wise. Malfoy's pale face pinkened. I'll take you on any time, Potter. Tonight, if you want. Wizard's duel. Wands only, no contact. What's the matter? Never heard of a wizard's duel before, I suppose. Of course he has, Ron intervened, wheeling around. I'm his second. Who's yours? Malfoy sized up Crabbe and Goyle. Crabbe, he decided. Midnight, all right. We'll meet you in the trophy room, that's always unlocked. After they left, Harry turned to Ron. What is a wizard's duel? And what does it mean, you're my second? A second's there to take over if you die, Ron explained casually. Then, catching the look on Harry's face, he added quickly, but people only die in proper duels with real wizards. The most you and Malfoy will be able to do is send sparks at each other. Neither of you knows enough magic to do any real damage. And if I wave my wand and nothing happens? Throw it away and punch him in the nose, Ron suggested. Or you could not go at all, Hermione interjected, having been listening to their conversation. It's obviously a trap. He wants to get you in trouble. Harry frowned. In the forest, challenges are met directly. To refuse would show weakness. This isn't the forest, Hermione pointed out. Wizard customs are different. Malfoy isn't challenging your honor, he's trying to trick you into breaking rules. Harry considered this. Perhaps you're right. The Centaurs also teach that true strength comes from wisdom, not from accepting every provocation. So you won't go? Hermione asked hopefully. I will not go to his trap, Harry decided. But I will address his challenge in my own way. The next morning, Harry approached the Slytherin table at breakfast with the same calm confidence he'd use when confronting a territorial forest creature. Conversations died down as students noticed him crossing the invisible boundary between house tables. Malfoy looked up with a smirk. Come to beg forgiveness for not showing up last night, Potter. Knew you'd be too scared. I did not come to your trap, Harry said clearly, his voice carrying to nearby tables. The Centaurs taught me that true challenges are issued in the open, not in shadows. If you wish to test your skills against mine, do so honorably, in class, on the Quidditch field, or in properly supervised dueling. Silence fell over the nearby tables. Even the teachers seemed to be listening now. Malfoy's face flushed. You're just making excuses because you're afraid. Fear is wisdom in the face of danger, Harry quoted Ronan's teaching. I fear breaking my word to Professor McGonagall. I fear disrespecting the school that has welcomed me. I do not fear you, Draco Malfoy. With that, Harry turned and walked back to the Gryffindor table, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Bloody brilliant, Fred Weasley declared as Harry sat down. Calling him out in front of everyone. Did you see Snape's face? George added gleefully. Even he couldn't say anything, you didn't break a single rule. Ron was grinning ear to ear. That was way better than a midnight duel. Harry shrugged. The Centaurs say that public truth is more powerful than private combat. They seem to say a lot of wise things, these Centaurs, Hermione noted with approval. They've had centuries to refine their understanding, Harry explained. They pass knowledge through generations, always building, rarely forgetting. As Harry settled into his breakfast, he felt a curious sensation, a tug of awareness toward the staff table. Looking up, he met the twinkling blue eyes of Albus Dumbledore, who gave him a small nod of what appeared to be approval. Harry nodded back, then returned to his meal. The headmaster remained an enigma to him. The Centaurs spoke of Dumbledore with grudging respect but also wariness. They believed he kept too many secrets and moved others like pieces on a game board. Yet he had also shown Harry unexpected consideration, arranging for him to receive special accommodations for his unique upbringing. Most notably, after hearing about Harry's difficulty with the dormitory beds, Dumbledore had personally visited Gryffindor Tower and transfigured a section of floor near Harry's window into something resembling a forest clearing, complete with moss and grass that never wilted. It was on this patch of familiar ground that Harry now slept each night, finally able to rest properly. Such thoughtfulness suggested Dumbledore might understand Harry better than most humans did. Or perhaps, as Bane would caution, it meant he was merely clever at gaining trust. Time would tell which interpretation proved correct. As October arrived, bringing with it the first hints of autumn, Harry found himself settling into a balance between his two worlds. 3 nights a week, he trained with Wood for Quidditch, gradually coming to enjoy the exhilaration of flight. Weekends often found him at the forest edge with Ron and Hermione, teaching them tracking skills or sharing Centaur star lore. And late at night, when the castle slept, he would sometimes slip out to meet Firenze, keeping the connection to his first home alive while exploring his place in this new one. The Star Walker was learning to bridge his worlds, one step at a time. Chapter 3, The Stone and the Stars. Halloween arrived at Hogwarts with an explosion of pumpkins, bats, and sugary treats that left Harry feeling utterly bewildered. The Centaurs acknowledged seasonal changes with solemn ceremonies honoring natural transitions, not by carving faces into vegetables or hanging fake spiders from the ceiling. You don't celebrate Halloween in the forest? Ron asked, mouth full of pumpkin pastry as they headed to Charms class. We observe Samhain, Harry corrected. The time when the veil between worlds thins. We honor ancestors and prepare for winter's coming. We don't. He gestured at a suit of armor that was enchanted to cackle whenever someone walked past. Do this. Samhain is the original festival that Halloween comes from, Hermione chimed in, always eager to demonstrate her knowledge. It's an ancient Celtic tradition that, bloody hell, here she goes again, Ron groaned. Harry placed a hand on Hermione's arm. I would hear your knowledge, Hermione. She beamed at him. Well, Samhain marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. People believed the boundaries between our world and the spirit world became thin, allowing the dead to cross over. They lit bonfires and performed rituals for protection. Yes, Harry nodded. The Centaurs still practice these ways. We gather beneath the stars, share stories of those who have returned to the earth, and read the heavens for winter's portents. Sounds boring compared to Halloween feasts and treats, Ron muttered. Different, Harry corrected gently. Not better or worse. Just different. They reached the charms classroom where Professor Flitwick announced they were ready to start making objects fly, something they'd all been eager to try since watching him make Neville's toad zoom around the classroom. Flitwick put the class into pairs. Harry was partnered with Seamus Finnegan, while Ron worked with Hermione. Neither looked happy about this arrangement. Now, don't forget that nice wrist movement we've been practicing, squeaked Professor Flitwick. Swish and flick, remember, swish and flick. And saying the magic words properly is very important, too. Harry stared at the feather on his desk, frowning slightly. 2 months at Hogwarts had improved his wand magic, but he still found it restrictive compared to the more intuitive forest magic he'd grown up with. Wingardium Leviosa. Seamus shouted, waving his arms like a windmill. You're saying it wrong, Harry told him. And your movements are too forceful. Magic responds to intention and precision, not volume. Seamus gave him an irritated look. Go on then, forest boy. Show us how it's done. Harry closed his eyes briefly, centering himself. When he opened them, he focused on the feather, feeling its essence, light, airy, meant to soar. With a gentle swish and flick of his wand, he murmured, Wingardium Leviosa. The feather rose from the desk and hovered 4 feet above their heads. But what caught everyone's attention was the faint green glow that surrounded it, the telltale sign that Harry had unconsciously blended wizard and forest magic again. Oh, well done, cried Professor Flitwick, clapping. Everyone see here, Mr. Potter's done it. And with such interesting embellishments. From across the room, Hermione achieved the same spell, though her feather lacked Harry's unusual glow. Ron, unable to make his feather budge, was in a very bad mood by the end of class. It's no wonder no one can stand her, he complained as they pushed their way into the crowded corridor after class, not noticing that Hermione was right behind them. She's a nightmare, honestly. Something knocked into Harry as it hurried past. It was Hermione, and Harry caught a glimpse of her face, tears streaming down it. I think she heard you, Harry said quietly. So? Ron looked uncomfortable. She must have noticed she's got no friends. Harry stopped walking and turned to face Ron directly. That was unkind and untrue, he said firmly. Hermione is our friend. Ron's ears went red. Well, she's always showing off and correcting everyone, she shares knowledge because it's what she values, Harry pointed out. As you share Quidditch facts and chess strategies. Would you call yourself a show-off for knowing things others don't? This direct comparison left Ron looking sheepish. I guess not. But she doesn't have to be so eager. Passionate? Harry suggested. The Centaurs say that passion for knowledge is a gift, not a flaw. Ron sighed. Fine. I'll apologize next time I see her. But Hermione didn't turn up for their next class, nor was she seen all afternoon. On their way down to the Halloween feast, Harry and Ron overheard Parvati telling her friend Lavender that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom and wanted to be left alone. Ron looked even more uncomfortable at this news, but Harry was genuinely concerned. Among the Centaurs, no one was left to suffer alone, especially not the young. "We should find her," he said decisively. "And go into the girls' bathroom?" Ron asked, horrified. "No way. Then I will go alone." But the feast, Harry was already walking away, headed for the bathroom Parvati had mentioned. Sighing dramatically, Ron hurried to catch up. "Fine, we'll check on her. But we're not missing the whole feast for this." They were just approaching the bathroom when Harry suddenly froze, holding up a hand to stop Ron. His nostrils flared as he scented the air, a habit from his forest upbringing that his roommates found alternately impressive and weird. "What is it?" Ron whispered. "Something wrong," Harry murmured, trying to identify the foul stench that had reached him. It reminded him of the time he and Layla had discovered a decaying boar carcass in the forest, the smell of rot and decay. Then they heard it, a low grunting, and the shuffling of enormous feet. At the end of the passage, something huge moved toward them. They shrank into the shadows, watching as it emerged into a patch of moonlight streaming through a high window. It was a horrible sight, 12 feet tall, its skin dull granite gray, its body like a boulder with a small bald head perched on top. It had short legs as thick as tree trunks and flat, horny feet. The smell was incredible. It held a huge wooden club, which dragged along the floor because its arms were so long. "Troll," Harry whispered, recognizing the creature from Firenze's descriptions. "In the castle?" Ron squeaked, face pale. "How did a mountain troll get in?" The troll stopped at a doorway and peered inside, waggling its long ears. It made up its tiny mind, slouched slowly into the room, and Harry's blood turned to ice as he realized which room it was. "Hermione," he breathed. A high, petrified scream confirmed his fear. "We need a teacher." Ron cried. "No time," Harry said firmly. He took a deep breath, centering himself. "The Centaurs taught me about trolls. They're strong but stupid. We must act decisively." Without waiting for Ron's response, Harry sprinted toward the bathroom door, displaying the speed and agility he'd developed during years of forest living. Ron, after a moment's hesitation, followed. Inside, Hermione was shrinking against the wall, looking ready to faint. The troll was advancing on her, knocking sinks off the walls as it went. "Confuse it," Harry called to Ron, grabbing a tap and throwing it hard against the wall. The troll stopped, blinking stupidly, looking around for the source of the noise. When it spotted Harry, it hesitated, then made for him instead, lifting its club. "Oi, pea-brain," yelled Ron from the other side, throwing a metal pipe at the creature. It didn't seem to notice the pipe hitting its shoulder, but it heard Ron's yell and turned toward him instead. Harry used the distraction to dart around the troll with remarkable speed. "Hermione, move," he urged, trying to pull her toward the door, but she couldn't move, still flat against the wall, mouth open with terror. The shouting and echoes seemed to be driving the troll berserk. It roared and started toward Ron, who was nearest and had no way to escape. Harry did something then that was both brave and reckless. He took a running jump and managed to fasten his arms around the troll's neck from behind. The troll couldn't feel Harry hanging there, but it certainly noticed when Harry's wand, still in his hand when he jumped, went straight up one of its nostrils. Howling with pain, the troll twisted and flailed its club, with Harry clinging on for dear life. Any second, the troll would rip him off or catch him with a terrible blow from the club. "Ron!" Harry shouted. "The club!" Ron, watching in horror, suddenly understood. He pulled out his own wand and, with more confidence than he'd shown in any class, performed the levitation charm they'd learned that day, Wingardium Leviosa. The club flew out of the troll's hand, rose high into the air, turned slowly over, and dropped, with a sickening crack, onto its owner's head. The troll swayed on the spot and then fell flat on its face with a thud that made the whole room tremble. Harry got to his feet, shaking and out of breath. Ron stood there with his wand still raised, staring at what he'd done. Hermione spoke first, her voice small. Is it dead? Unconscious, Harry assessed, checking the creature with the careful approach he'd use for any potentially dangerous forest animal. It will wake eventually. We should go. But a sudden slamming and loud footsteps made the three of them look up. A moment later, Professor McGonagall burst into the room, closely followed by Snape and Quirrell. Quirrell took one look at the troll, let out a faint whimper, and sat quickly down on a toilet, clutching his heart. Snape bent over the troll, while McGonagall fixed Harry and Ron with a furious stare. Her lips were white. "What on earth were you thinking?" she demanded, cold fury in her voice. "You're lucky you weren't killed. Why aren't you in your dormitory?" Then a small voice came out of the shadows. "Please, Professor McGonagall, they were looking for me. Miss Granger." Hermione had managed to get to her feet at last. "I went looking for the troll because I thought I could deal with it on my own, you know, because I've read all about them." Harry stared at Hermione. She was lying to a teacher. Completely out of character for her. "If they hadn't found me, I'd be dead now," she continued. Harry jumped on its back and stuck his wand up its nose, and Ron knocked it out with its own club. They didn't have time to get anyone. It was about to finish me off when they arrived. Harry and Ron tried to look as though this story wasn't new to them. "Well, in that case," Professor McGonagall said, staring at the three of them. "Miss Granger, you foolish girl, how could you think of tackling a mountain troll on your own?" Hermione hung her head. 5 points will be taken from Gryffindor for this," said Professor McGonagall. "I'm very disappointed in you. If you're not hurt at all, you'd better get off to Gryffindor Tower. Students are finishing the feast in their houses." Hermione left quickly. Professor McGonagall turned to Harry and Ron. "Well, I still say you were lucky, but not many first years could have taken on a full-grown mountain troll. You each win Gryffindor 5 points. Professor Dumbledore will be informed of this. You may go." They hurried out of the chamber and didn't speak at all until they were 2 floors up. Harry noticed that Snape had been limping, and there had been a peculiar scent around him, something that triggered a warning in Harry's forest-trained senses. "Did you smell blood on Professor Snape?" he asked Ron quietly. "Smell blood? No, I was too busy almost dying," Ron replied. "But we got 10 points, right? Not bad." "We should have gotten more than 10 points, Harry said, shaking his head. 5, you mean, once she's taken off Hermione's. No, I mean more. Trolls are dangerous creatures. We could have died. Better not say that around McGonagall. I think we're lucky not to have been expelled." Ron paused. "But that was good of Hermione to get us out of trouble like that." They reached the portrait of the fat lady. "Pig snout," they said and entered. The common room was packed and noisy. Everyone was eating the food that had been sent up. Hermione, however, stood alone by the door, waiting for them. There was an embarrassed pause before all three of them said, "Thanks," at the same time, and hurried off to get plates. But from that moment on, Hermione Granger became their firm friend. There are some things you can't share without ending up liking each other, and knocking out a 12-foot mountain troll is one of them. As November arrived, the weather turned very cold. The mountains around the school became icy gray and the lake like chilled steel. Every morning the ground was covered in frost. For Harry, this was a welcome change. The castle, with its stone walls and drafty corridors, had seemed unnaturally confined during the warmer months. Now, with frost touching the windows and cold air seeping through cracks, it felt more like the forest during winter, a time of stillness and reflection. "You're actually enjoying this weather?" Ron asked incredulously one morning as they trudged across the frozen grounds toward herbology. His teeth were chattering, and he'd wrapped his scarf around his head so that only his eyes were visible. "Winter brings clarity," Harry explained, walking comfortably in much lighter clothing than his classmates. "In the forest, winter strips away distraction. You see the true shapes of things. Well, right now the true shape of me is freezing, Ron grumbled. Hermione, bundled in a thick scarf and mittens, looked at Harry curiously. Don't you get cold at all? Harry shrugged. The Centaurs taught me to adjust my internal fire. They call it the warming way, focusing your body's energy to generate heat. That's fascinating. Hermione's academic curiosity immediately overshadowed her discomfort. Is it a form of wandless magic? Or more of a meditative technique? Both, Harry replied. The boundary between magic and the natural world is less distinct for centaurs than for wizards. Could you teach us? Hermione asked eagerly. Harry considered this. I can try. The centaurs say humans rarely master such techniques because they're too disconnected from their bodies. But perhaps you'll prove them wrong. That evening in the common room, Harry attempted to teach Ron and Hermione the warming way. They sat cross-legged in a quiet corner, drawing curious glances from other Gryffindors. First, you must feel your connection to the earth, Harry instructed, his voice taking on the rhythmic cadence he'd learned from Firenze. Even through stone and wood, the earth's energy flows upward. Imagine roots extending from your body, drawing up that energy. Hermione closed her eyes in concentration, while Ron fidgeted uncomfortably. Now, visualize that energy as a flame in your core, Harry continued. Not burning, but warming. Like sunlight absorbed by stone, then slowly released. After 20 minutes of guided meditation, Hermione reported feeling a subtle warmth spreading through her limbs. Ron, however, remained skeptical. I don't feel anything except my legs going numb, he complained. Can't I just use a warming charm instead? The point isn't just warmth, Harry explained patiently. It's understanding your connection to natural magic. The Centaurs say that wizards rely too much on wands and not enough on their innate connections to the world's energy. That's all well and good for you, mate, Ron sighed, but some of us weren't raised in the woods by philosophical horse people. Ron. Hermione admonished, but Harry merely smiled. The Centaurs also say patience is the first lesson most humans must learn, he said serenely. Ron threw a cushion at him. Despite such light moments, Harry found himself increasingly preoccupied with a growing sense of wrongness within the castle. His forest-honed instincts, accustomed to detecting subtle shifts in the natural world, were picking up on something amiss, like the stillness before a predator strikes or the heaviness in the air before a storm. The feeling intensified during his first Quidditch match against Slytherin, when his broom suddenly tried to buck him off midair. Only his exceptional reflexes and physical strength, developed through years of climbing the tallest trees in the Forbidden Forest, allowed him to hang on until the mysterious jinx ended. Hermione later revealed she'd seen Professor Snape muttering what appeared to be a curse, his eyes fixed on Harry's broom. I set his robes on fire to break his concentration, she admitted as they visited Hagrid's hut after the match. Harry frowned. Fire is not to be used lightly, he said, the centaur teaching evident in his tone. But I thank you for your protection. Rubbish, said Hagrid, who hadn't heard about Snape's apparent jinxing. Why would Snape do something like that? Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at one another, wondering what to tell him. Harry decided on the truth, or at least, part of it. I discovered something about him, he said carefully. On Halloween, when the troll was loose, he wasn't with the other teachers. And later, I noticed he was injured, a bite or scratch on his leg, bleeding. How could you possibly know that? Hagrid asked skeptically. I smelled the blood, Harry said simply. And I saw him limping. Ron and Hermione nodded confirmation, having long ago accepted Harry's enhanced senses as just another quirk of his unusual upbringing. Hagrid dropped the teapot he was holding. How do you know about Fluffy? He blurted out. Fluffy? They asked in unison. Yeah, he's mine, bought him off a Greek chappie I met in the pub last year. I lent him to Dumbledore to guard he stopped abruptly. Yes, said Harry eagerly. Now, don't ask me any more, said Hagrid gruffly. That's top secret, that is. But whatever it is, Snape's trying to steal it, Ron insisted. Rubbish, said Hagrid again. Snape's a Hogwarts teacher, he'd do nothing of the sort. Then why did he try to kill Harry? Cried Hermione. I don't know why Harry's broom acted like that, but Snape wouldn't try and kill a student. Now, listen to me, all three of ya, you're meddling in things that don't concern ya. It's dangerous. You forget that dog, and you forget what it's guardin', that's between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel, aha, said Harry. There's someone called Nicholas Flamel involved, is there? Hagrid looked furious with himself. Later, as they walked back to the castle, Hermione was already planning a research strategy to discover who Nicholas Flamel might be. Ron was speculating wildly about what could be so valuable it needed a three-headed dog to guard it. But Harry was quiet, his mind processing what they'd learned in a different way. The Centaurs had taught him to see patterns, to connect seemingly unrelated events into a meaningful whole. Something powerful lies beneath the castle, he finally said. Something that disrupts the natural flow of magic. I've felt it since arriving, like a stone in a river, forcing the current around it. Ron and Hermione stopped walking to look at him. You can actually feel it? Hermione asked, fascinated. Harry nodded. Not always, but sometimes, especially at night, when the castle is quiet. It pulses with old magic. Very old. Wicked, Ron breathed. So we're not just being nosy, you're actually sensing something wrong. I wouldn't call it wrong, Harry clarified. Just, powerful. And desired by others. Like the richest feeding ground in the forest, where predators gather. All the more reason to figure out what it is, Hermione decided. I'll start researching Nicholas Flamel first thing tomorrow. As the autumn term continued, their search for information about Flamel proved frustrating. Though Hermione scoured the library and Ron asked his older brothers, in a roundabout way, they found nothing. Meanwhile, Harry divided his time between Quidditch practice, classes, and increasingly frequent visits to the forest edge to meet with Firenze. The Centaur had sensed Harry's unease and offered guidance through star readings and forest wisdom. Mars grows brighter, Firenze observed during one such meeting in early December. They stood in a small clearing just within the forest boundary, gazing up at the night sky. Conflict approaches. I feel it, Harry acknowledged. Something hidden in the castle calls to darker forces. Firenze nodded gravely. The castle has long contained secrets, Starwalker. Some benign, others less so. Your human professors believe stone walls and enchantments can contain power, but power always finds its way to freedom, like water seeking the lowest point. Should I tell Dumbledore what I sense? Harry asked. The stars suggest caution, Firenze replied. The white-bearded one plays a complex game. He may already know more than he reveals. Harry pondered this. The Centaur way would be to observe and prepare, not to interfere. True, Firenze agreed. But you walk between worlds, Starwalker. The Centaur way is only half your path. This cryptic advice left Harry with much to contemplate as he made his way back to the castle under his invisibility cloak, a mysterious Christmas gift that had arrived that morning with only an unsigned note. Your father left this in my possession before he died. It is time it was returned to you. Use it well. The cloak was proving invaluable for his nighttime forest visits, though Harry suspected Dumbledore somehow knew of his excursions. Twice now, he'd encountered the headmaster in corridors when returning from the forest, and both times Dumbledore had merely smiled knowingly and wished him a pleasant evening. Christmas at Hogwarts brought new wonders for Harry. The castle's decorations fascinated him, 12 towering Christmas trees, holly and mistletoe hanging from ceilings, and magical snow falling from the great hall's enchanted ceiling. It was altogether different from the Centaur's subtle observance of the winter solstice, which focused on stars and silence rather than bright colors and festivity. You're not going home for Christmas? Harry asked Ron as they helped decorate the Gryffindor common room. Hermione had already left for the holidays with her parents. "Nah, Mum and Dad are visiting Charlie in Romania," Ron explained. "Besides, couldn't leave you here alone, could I? Your first proper Christmas and all." Harry was touched by this thoughtfulness. "The Centaurs observe the solstice, not Christmas," he explained. "We gather beneath the stars on the longest night, sharing silence as we wait for the sun's return. It marks the turning point when days begin to lengthen again." "Sounds a bit boring," Ron said frankly. "No presents or anything?" "We exchange tokens of natural significance," Harry said. "A special stone, a perfect feather, herbs gathered under specific stars. The gift's meaning matters more than its form." "Well, you're getting proper presents this year," Ron declared. "Already got you something, and I bet Hermione has too." True to Ron's prediction, Harry awoke on Christmas morning to a small pile of packages at the foot of his forest floor sleeping area. The concept of wrapped gifts was entirely new to him, and he approached them with the cautious curiosity he'd show for any unknown forest discovery. "Well, go on then," urged Ron, already tearing into his own presents. "Open them." Harry's first wizarding Christmas brought treasures both practical and meaningful: a hand-carved wooden flute from Hagrid, a box of chocolate frogs from Hermione, a hand-knitted sweater from Mrs. Weasley, and a small pouch of rare herbs from Forenza, collected under the winter solstice stars. But it was the invisibility cloak that truly captured his imagination. The Centaurs had taught Harry about visible and invisible connections between all things, how energy flowed through pathways unseen by ordinary eyes. This cloak seemed to embody that teaching, making the wearer not truly invisible but rather shifting them slightly out of the visible realm. "I've read about those," Ron said in awe. "They're really rare and valuable. Who sent it to you?" Harry examined the unsigned note again. "Someone who knew my father." That night, unable to sleep with the cloak's possibilities filling his mind, Harry decided to explore the castle more thoroughly than he'd dared before. Wrapping the silvery material around himself, he slipped out of Gryffindor Tower and wandered the silent corridors. His nighttime wandering eventually led him to a disused classroom containing nothing but an ornate mirror standing on two clawed feet. The inscription carved around the top read, "Erist stra eru oit ube kafru oit on wosi." Curious, Harry stepped in front of the mirror, and nearly cried out in surprise. He was not alone in the reflection. Behind him stood a crowd of people, including a woman with dark red hair and green eyes exactly like his, and a tall, thin, black-haired man wearing glasses. "Mother," he whispered. "Father." They smiled at him, nodding. And around them stood others, his family, he somehow knew. But behind them, partially blended with the human figures, he saw something else, the shadowy forms of centaurs, including Forenza, Ronan, and even the stern Megorian. The two groups, human family and centaur herd, stood together, united in the mirror's vision. Harry stared transfixed at the image. The centaurs had taught him that his human parents had died protecting him, but he'd never seen their faces. Now, looking at his mother's eyes, and his father's unruly black hair, his hair, he felt a connection to his human heritage stronger than ever before. Yet the presence of the centaurs alongside his human family spoke to his deepest desire, not to choose between worlds, but to unite them. He might have stood there all night if not for a quiet voice behind him. "Back again, Harry." He turned to find Albus Dumbledore sitting on one of the desks by the wall. Harry hadn't noticed him in his absorption with the mirror. "I didn't see you, sir," Harry said, slipping naturally into the formal address the centaurs used for elders deserving respect. "Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you," said Dumbledore, smiling. "So, you, like hundreds before you, have discovered the delights of the mirror of Erist." "Erist, desire," Harry translated, reading the inscription backward as centaur rune teaching had instilled in him. "This mirror shows what one desires most." Dumbledore looked impressed. "Indeed it does. You, who have never known your family, see them standing around you. But remember, Harry, this mirror gives neither knowledge nor truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen, or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible. The Centaurs teach that desire without acceptance leads to suffering, Harry said quietly. Like a thirsty deer fixated on a mirage instead of seeking real water. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Your Centaur family has taught you wisdom beyond your years, Harry. The mirror will be moved to a new home tomorrow, and I ask you not to go looking for it again. If you ever do run across it, you will now be prepared. Harry nodded. Yes, Professor. Dumbledore stood to leave, then paused. Tell me, Harry, what did you see in the mirror? If you don't mind sharing. My human family and my Centaur family, standing together, Harry answered honestly. Not separate worlds, but one. Something like sadness flickered across Dumbledore's face, quickly replaced by his usual serene expression. A noble desire indeed. He paused again. Harry, may I ask you something about your life with the Centaurs? I confess I've been most curious. You may ask, Harry said carefully, the way he'd heard Firenze respond to direct questions about Centaur ways. Were you happy there? In the forest? The question surprised Harry. Adults usually asked about Centaur magic or star reading or what he'd eaten, practical concerns. No one had simply asked about his happiness. Yes, Harry said, realizing as he spoke that it was entirely true. I didn't know any other life, but I was happy. The herd cared for me, taught me, included me in their ways. I was different, but not lesser. Dumbledore nodded slowly. I'm glad to hear it. I've often wondered, you see. When you disappeared from Privet Drive all those years ago, I feared the worst. By the time we discovered you were alive and well with the Centaurs, you had already been with them for several years. I considered, removing you, bringing you to live with wizard kind. Why didn't you? Harry asked, genuinely curious. I consulted with those who understand Centaur ways better than I. They convinced me that forcibly removing you would cause more harm than good, to you, to the Centaurs who had claimed you as their ward, and to the already strained relations between our peoples. Dumbledore smiled gently. And it seems they were right. You've grown into a remarkable young man, Harry, one with a foot in two worlds, which may prove more valuable than you know. With that cryptic statement, Dumbledore bid Harry good night, leaving him to ponder their conversation all the way back to Gryffindor Tower. The return of students after Christmas break brought renewed energy to the search for Nicholas Flamel. Hermione, frustrated by their lack of progress, suggested a more systematic approach to combing the library. We've been looking in the wrong section, she declared during one of their research sessions. I bet Flamel is so famous he's in a basic reference book. We just need to find the right one. Harry, however, had been pursuing a different line of inquiry. During his forest meetings with Firenze, he'd asked about ancient wizards and powerful magical objects. The Centaurs must know of famous human wizards from history, he reasoned to Ron and Hermione. They observe and record much that humans forget. And? Hermione asked eagerly. Did Firenze know about Flamel? Not directly, Harry admitted. But he spoke of the Stone Seeker from centuries past, a human wizard who sought to bend natural law by creating a stone that prevented death and turned base metals to gold. Ron's eyes widened. That sounds like the Philosopher's Stone. Hermione gasped. She dashed to her bag and pulled out an enormous old book. I checked this out weeks ago for a bit of light reading. Light? Said Ron incredulously as she heaved the massive tome onto the table. Hermione ignored him, frantically flipping pages until she found what she wanted. Here it is. The ancient study of alchemy is concerned with making the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary substance with astonishing powers. The stone will transform any metal into pure gold. It also produces the elixir of life, which will make the drinker immortal. There have been many reports of the Philosopher's Stone over the centuries, but the only stone currently in existence belongs to Mr. Nicholas Flamel, the noted alchemist, who celebrated his 665th birthday last year. That's it! Harry exclaimed. The stone that disrupts the natural flow I've been sensing. It's this philosopher's stone. And Snape's trying to steal it, Ron added. No wonder Dumbledore's got it hidden at Hogwarts. Imagine having that much gold and never dying. Harry frowned. The Centaurs teach that death is not to be feared but respected as part of the natural cycle. To avoid it is to disrupt the balance. Well, Nicholas Flamel obviously disagrees, Ron pointed out. And can you blame him? Who wants to die if they don't have to? Everything dies eventually, Harry said quietly. Even stars burn out in time. That is what gives life meaning, its temporary nature. Hermione looked thoughtful. That's actually quite profound, Harry. Not my wisdom, he demurred. Centaur teaching passed through generations. Their discovery of the Philosopher's Stone's identity led to a new concern. If they had figured it out, how long before Snape, or whoever was really after it, managed to get past the three-headed dog and whatever other protections guarded the stone? Harry's worry intensified when, during a Quidditch match against Hufflepuff where Snape was referee, he spotted a dark figure entering the Forbidden Forest alone. After catching the snitch in record time to end the game quickly, Harry borrowed Ron's binoculars and confirmed his suspicion. Snape was heading deep into the forest, moving with purpose toward the densest section. That night, Harry slipped out under his invisibility cloak. Instead of his usual meeting spot with Firenze near the forest edge, he ventured deeper, following the faint trail Snape's passage had left earlier that day. His forest training allowed him to track the professor's movements through subtle signs, a broken twig, a disturbed patch of earth, a thread caught on a bramble. The trail led to a shadowy clearing where Harry heard voices. Creeping closer under his cloak, he saw Snape standing with Professor Quirrell, who was trembling visibly. Don't know why you wanted TT to meet here of all places, Severus. Oh, I thought we'd keep this private, said Snape, his voice icy. Students aren't supposed to know about the Philosopher's Stone, after all. Harry's heartbeat quickened. He leaned forward, trying to catch Quirrell's mumbled response. Have you found out how to get past that beast of Hagrid's yet? Snape interrupted. But Severus, you don't want me as your enemy, Quirrell, said Snape, taking a step toward him. I don't know what you know perfectly well what I mean. An owl hooted loudly nearby, causing Harry to miss some of Snape's next words, but he caught, your little bit of hocus pocus. I'm waiting. But I don't, very well, Snape cut in. We'll have another little chat soon, when you've had time to think things over and decided where your loyalties lie. He threw his cloak over his head and strode out of the clearing. Quirrell stood frozen, terror etched across his face. After a moment, he too left, heading back toward the castle. Harry remained hidden, processing what he'd overheard. It seemed Snape was trying to force Quirrell to help him get the stone, perhaps Quirrell had set up one of the protections. But something else bothered him about the encounter. Throughout his forest upbringing, Harry had developed a keen sense for detecting fear and threat, essential skills for survival among dangerous creatures. And something about Quirrell's fear felt wrong. Not the genuine terror of prey, but something more calculated. And there had been a scent, faint but distinct, something Harry had never encountered before. A smell of decay similar to the troll, but colder, more ancient. Deep in thought, Harry nearly missed the movement at the edge of the clearing, a silvery shape gliding between trees. A unicorn. Harry froze in wonder. The Centaurs had taught him about unicorns, of course. They shared the forest in uneasy coexistence, the unicorns generally avoiding Centaur territory. Harry had glimpsed them occasionally from a distance, but never this close. The magnificent creature paused at the clearing's edge, its pearlescent coat glowing in the moonlight. It seemed to look directly at Harry despite his invisibility cloak, another confirmation of his suspicion that the cloak shifted him slightly out of ordinary visibility rather than making him truly unseen. For a moment, they regarded each other, the boy raised by centaurs and the forest's most magical creature. Then the unicorn dipped its head slightly, almost a nod of acknowledgement, before turning and disappearing into the trees. Harry took this encounter as a sign. The centaurs had taught him that meaningful animal encounters, especially with magical creatures, often preceded important events. He needed to be vigilant. Returning to the castle, he immediately shared what he'd overheard with Ron and Hermione. "So we were right, it is the Philosopher's Stone," Hermione exclaimed. "And Snape's trying to force Quirrell to help him get it." "Poor Quirrell," Ron sympathized. "No wonder he's been looking so ill lately." Harry frowned, still troubled by the inconsistencies he'd sensed. "I'm not sure it's that simple. Something felt wrong about their interaction." "What do you mean?" Hermione asked. Harry struggled to articulate his instinctual concerns. "In the forest, you learn to read fear, to know when a creature is truly terrified versus when it's putting on a display. Quirrell's fear seemed performed. And there was a strange smell." Ron and Hermione exchanged glances. They'd learned to trust Harry's enhanced senses and forest-honed instincts, but sometimes his observations seemed almost supernatural to them. "Are you saying Quirrell is faking?" Ron asked skeptically. "Why would he do that?" "I don't know," Harry admitted. "But the centaurs teach that appearances often deceive while patterns reveal truth. And the pattern here doesn't align with the appearance." Nevertheless, they agreed to keep a closer eye on both professors. In the weeks that followed, Quirrell seemed to grow paler and thinner, but he apparently stood his ground against Snape. The stone remained safe, as far as they could tell. Meanwhile, the teachers began piling on more homework as exams approached. Even Harry, who generally absorbed academic knowledge easily thanks to the centaur's rigorous mental training, found himself spending long hours in the library. During one such study session in late spring, they encountered Hagrid behaving suspiciously in the library, hiding something behind his back and evading their questions about the Philosopher's Stone. Intrigued, they visited his hut later that day to find it sweltering hot despite the warm weather outside. A large black egg sat in the fire. "Hagrid," said Hermione in a tone of forced calm, "what exactly is that?" "That's, Hagrid nervously pulled at his beard. "A dragon egg," Harry identified immediately. The centaurs had extensive knowledge of magical creatures, including dragons, though they rarely discussed them except as celestial symbols. "Where did you get it?" Ron asked, equally amazed and horrified. "It must have cost you a fortune." "Won it," said Hagrid. "Last night. I was down in the village having a few drinks and got into a game o' cards with a stranger. Think he was quite glad to get rid of it, to be honest." "But what are you going to do when it hatches?" Hermione asked. "Well, I've been doin' some readin'," said Hagrid, pulling a large book from under his pillow. "Got this out of the library, Dragon Breeding for Pleasure and Profit. It's a bit out of date, course, but it's all in here." He proceeded to explain his plans for raising a Norwegian ridgeback dragon in his wooden hut, seemingly oblivious to the danger and illegality of his actions. Harry listened with growing concern. "Hagrid," he said finally, "the centaurs teach that wild creatures must follow their nature. A dragon's nature is to fly free and breathe fire. It cannot be happy in a wooden house." "I'll raise him right," Hagrid insisted stubbornly. "He'll know me as his mummy." Their attempts to reason with Hagrid proved futile. When the dragon hatched a week later, Hagrid was smitten, naming the creature Norbert and feeding it dead rats and brandy. "He's growing so quickly," Hermione worried as they left Hagrid's hut after visiting the week-old dragon, which had tripled in size already. "Hagrid can't keep him." "My brother Charlie works with dragons in Romania," Ron suggested. "Maybe he could take him." After convincing Hagrid that Norbert would be happier with his own kind, they arranged for some of Charlie's friends to collect the dragon from the tallest tower at midnight on Saturday. The plan nearly went awry when Ron was bitten by the increasingly aggressive dragon and had to go to the hospital wing. Then they discovered that Malfoy had found a letter from Charlie detailing the plan. Only Harry's invisibility cloak and forest-trained stealth allowed them to successfully deliver Norbert to the dragon handlers without being caught. Unfortunately, in their relief at getting rid of Norbert, Harry and Hermione forgot the invisibility cloak at the top of the tower. Caught by Filch on their way back to Gryffindor Tower, they were taken to Professor McGonagall, who had also caught Neville trying to warn them about Malfoy. "I would never have believed it of any of you. Mr. Filch says you were up in the astronomy tower. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Explain yourselves," McGonagall demanded. Neither Harry nor Hermione could come up with a believable explanation that wouldn't implicate Hagrid. "I believe I have some idea of what's going on," said Professor McGonagall. "It doesn't take a genius to work it out. You fed Draco Malfoy some cock-and-bull story about a dragon, trying to get him out of bed and into trouble. I've already caught him. I suppose you think it's funny that Longbottom here heard the story and believed it, too?" Harry tried to catch Neville's eye to communicate that this wasn't true, but Neville avoided his gaze. "I'm disgusted," said Professor McGonagall. "For students out of bed in one night. I've never heard of such a thing before. Miss Granger, I thought you had more sense. As for you, Mr. Potter, I thought Gryffindor meant more to you than this." Harry maintained the stoic expression the Centaurs had taught him for facing elders' discipline, but internally, he felt genuine shame. Not for helping Hagrid, that had been the right thing to do, but for failing to plan more carefully and dragging his friends into trouble. "All 3 of you will receive detentions," Professor McGonagall continued. "And 50 points will be taken from Gryffindor." 50. Harry gasped, breaking his silence. His Centaur upbringing had instilled a strong sense of proportional justice, and this punishment seemed excessive. 50 points each, said Professor McGonagall, breathing heavily through her long, pointed nose. 150 points lost. Gryffindor's lead in the House Championship, built up through Harry's Quidditch victories, had vanished overnight. The Gryffindor's reaction was brutal. From being one of the most popular students for his Quidditch prowess, Harry became the most hated overnight. Even Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs turned on him, having hoped to see Slytherin's 7-year winning streak broken. Only Ron stood by them, insisting the dragon adventure had been worth it despite his bandaged hand. "They'll forget about it soon," he assured Harry and Hermione. "Fred and George have lost loads of points over the years, and everyone still likes them." But unlike Fred and George, Harry wasn't naturally ebullient or sociable. His Centaur upbringing had made him reserved and somewhat solemn by human standards. Without his Quidditch popularity as a buffer, his strange habits and philosophical pronouncements now seemed weird rather than intriguing to his fellow students. Harry weathered the social ostracism with outward calm, though it pained him deeply. The Centaurs had taught him to value community and his place within it. Being rejected by his human community reopened questions about where he truly belonged. One night, seeking solace, he slipped out to the forest edge to meet Firenze. "The stars speak of trials approaching," the Centaur observed, studying the night sky. "Your path narrows, Starwalker." "I've disappointed my human herd," Harry said quietly. "They reject me now." Firenze's blue eyes regarded him thoughtfully. "Humans form and break bonds quickly, unlike Centaurs. What seems a permanent breach today may be forgotten tomorrow." "I find myself caught between worlds again," Harry admitted. "Too Centaur for the humans, too human for the Centaurs." "That is your unique position," Firenze reminded him. "The Starwalker bridges worlds. It is not an easy path, but it is yours to walk." Harry nodded, drawing strength from the Centaur's wisdom. "Something approaches, Firenze. Something connected to the powerful object hidden in the castle. I can feel it building, like pressure before a storm." "Trust your instincts," Firenze advised. "They were honed in the forest and will serve you in the stone nest as well. But be cautious, the stars show great danger ahead." With this warning echoing in his mind, Harry returned to the castle, more alert than ever to the subtle signs of approaching conflict. The detention for their nighttime adventure came a week later. At 11 o'clock, Harry, Hermione, and Neville joined Malfoy and Filch in the entrance hall. To Harry's surprise and relief, they were led not to some grimy dungeon for punishment but outside, toward Hagrid's hut. "Is that you, Filch? Hurry up, I want to get started," Hagrid called, emerging from his hut with Fong at his heel. "I suppose you think you'll be enjoying yourself with that oaf," said Filch nastily. "Well, think again, it's into the forest you're going, and I'm much mistaken if you'll all come out in one piece." Neville moaned, and Malfoy stopped dead in his tracks. "The forest," he repeated, sounding far less cool than usual. "We can't go in there at night, there's all sorts of things in there, werewolves, I heard." "That's your problem, isn't it?" said Filch, his voice cracking with glee. "Should have thought of them werewolves before you got in trouble, shouldn't you?" Harry felt a surge of excitement rather than fear. The forest, his first home. Even if they were there for detention, being back among the trees would be like returning to familiar territory. Hagrid approached, frowning at Filch. "Been lecturing them, eh? 'S not your place to do that. You've done your bit, I'll take over from here." "I'll be back at dawn," said Filch, "for what's left of them," he added nastily. As Filch departed, Malfoy turned to Hagrid. "I'm not going in that forest," he said with a note of panic in his voice. "Yeah, or if ye want ter stay at Hogwarts," said Hagrid fiercely. "Ye've done wrong and now ye've got ter pay for it." "But this is servant stuff," Malfoy protested. "I thought we'd be copying lines or something. If my father knew I was doing this, he'd tell you that's how it is at Hogwarts," Hagrid growled. "Copying lines? What good's that to anyone? Ye'll do summat useful or ye'll get out." Malfoy didn't move, but his furious glare subsided. "Right then," said Hagrid, "now, listen carefully, 'cause it's dangerous what we're gonna do tonight, and I don't want no one taking risks. Follow me over here a moment." He led them to the very edge of the forest, holding his lamp up high and pointing down a narrow, winding earth track that disappeared into the thick trees. A light breeze blew Harry's hair back as he faced the forest, and he inhaled deeply, savoring the familiar sense of home. "Look there," said Hagrid. "See that stuff shining on the ground? Silvery stuff. That's unicorn blood. There's a unicorn in there been hurt badly by summit. This is the second time in a week. I found one dead last Wednesday. We're gonna try and find the poor thing. We might have to put it out of its misery. And what if whatever hurt the unicorn finds us first?" Malfoy asked, unable to keep the fear out of his voice. "There's nothing that lives in the forest that'll hurt ya if you're with me or Fong," said Hagrid. "And keep to the path. Right now, we're gonna split into two parties and follow the trail in different directions." "I want Fong," said Malfoy quickly, looking at Fong's long teeth. "All right, but I warn ya, he's a coward," said Hagrid. "So me, Hermione, and Neville will go one way and Draco, Harry, and Fong will go the other." Harry nodded, secretly pleased. The forest at night was his element, and without Hagrid's well-intentioned but noisy presence, he could better use his forest skills. "If any of us finds the unicorn, we'll send up green sparks. If anyone gets in trouble, send up red sparks, and we'll all come and find ya. Be careful, let's go." The forest was dark and silent as Harry led the way down their assigned path, Malfoy and Fong following reluctantly behind. Harry moved with the silent confidence of someone returning home, his eyes quickly adjusting to the darkness, his senses expanding to read the forest around them. "Wait," he said suddenly, holding up a hand. He knelt to examine a silvery smear on the path. "Fresh blood. The unicorn passed this way not long ago. How can you possibly know how fresh it is?" Malfoy demanded, though his voice was hushed with fear. "The scent is still strong, and the edges haven't dulled," Harry explained, standing again. "It's wounded badly, moving slower now." They continued forward, Harry tracking the unicorn's path with ease. Malfoy's fear was palpable, but Harry found his presence almost irrelevant. His attention was fully engaged with the forest, reacquainting himself with its rhythms and messages. The path became increasingly difficult to follow as the trees grew thicker. Harry noticed the blood seemed to be getting heavier, suggesting the unicorn had staggered through the tangled undergrowth to their right. He led them off the path, following the blood trail. "Potter, what are you doing?" Malfoy hissed. Hagrid said stay on the path. "The unicorn went this way," Harry replied simply. "We must follow if we're to help it." Reluctantly, Malfoy followed, keeping very close to Fawn. They walked for nearly half an hour, deeper and deeper into the forest, until the path became almost impossible to follow because the trees were so thick. Harry's senses told him they were close now. The blood spatters were larger, more frequent. Around the next bend. "Look," he murmured, pointing ahead. Something bright white was gleaming on the ground. They inched closer. It was the unicorn, and it was dead. Harry had never seen anything so beautiful and sad. Its long, slender legs were stuck out at odd angles where it had fallen, and its mane was spread pearly white on the dark leaves. Harry approached reverently, kneeling beside the magnificent creature. He placed a hand gently on its flank, murmuring the centaur prayer for fallen forest dwellers: "Return to the stars that birthed you, the forest remembers your light." A slithering sound made him freeze. A bush on the edge of the clearing quivered. Then, out of the shadows, a hooded figure crawled across the ground like some stalking beast. Harry, Malfoy, and Fawkes stood transfixed. The cloaked figure reached the unicorn, lowered its head over the wound in the animal's side, and began to drink its blood. Arg! Malfoy let out a terrible scream and bolted, so did Fawkes. The hooded figure raised its head and looked right at Harry, unicorn blood dribbling down its front. It got to its feet and came swiftly toward him. Harry stood his ground. Fear coursed through him, but deeper than fear was outrage. This creature had desecrated something pure and sacred. The centaurs had taught him that unicorn blood carried a terrible curse for those who slew the innocent creature to drink it. Only one desperately clinging to life would commit such a crime against nature. As the figure approached, a searing pain pierced Harry's forehead like never before, his scar burning as if on fire. Half blinded, he staggered backward, hearing hoofbeats behind him, seeing something leap over him and charge at the figure. The pain in Harry's head was so intense he fell to his knees. It took a minute or two to pass. When he looked up, the figure had gone. A centaur stood over him, not Firenze or Ronan or any he recognized from his herd, but a younger, Palomino male with white blonde hair and astonishingly blue eyes. "Harry Potter," the centaur said. "You must leave the forest. It is not safe for you at this time." "I know you," Harry realized, recognizing the centaur from gatherings he'd attended with his herd. "You're Helios, from the southern herd." The centaur looked surprised. "You speak as one familiar with centaur ways." "I was raised by the northern herd," Harry explained, getting to his feet. "I am Harry of the Stars to them." Recognition flashed in the centaur's eyes. The Star Walker. The Prophecy Child. He bowed his head slightly. "Forgive me. I did not realize who you were. The stars have spoken of you, but I did not expect to find you here." "What was that thing you saved me from?" Harry asked. "A monstrous creature," said the centaur. "It is a terrible crime to slay a unicorn. Drinking its blood will keep you alive even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. You have slain something pure and defenseless to save yourself, and you will have but a half-life, a cursed life, from the moment the blood touches your lips." Harry nodded solemnly. "The northern herd taught me this law. Only one with nothing to lose and everything to gain would commit such a sacrilege." "Yes," agreed the centaur. "And do you know what is hidden in the school at this very moment?" "The philosopher's stone," Harry said quietly. "Which produces the elixir of life." Can you think of nobody who has waited many years to return to power, who has clung to life, awaiting their chance? A shudder ran through Harry as understanding dawned. Voldemort. Before the centaur could respond, they heard galloping from the other side of the clearing. 2 more centaurs burst through the trees, their flanks heaving and sweaty. Helios, one called. What are you doing? We have agreed not to interfere with what is written in the stars. I cannot stand by while the Starwalker is harmed, Krios, Helios replied firmly. The prophecy must unfold as foretold. The other centaur fixed his gaze on Harry. So this is the human foal raised by the northern herd. The one they call Starwalker. Yes, Orion, Helios confirmed. And he is in danger here. We must return him to the human gamekeeper. The stars have been read, Orion insisted. The path is set. And yet we still have choice in how we walk it, Helios countered. Their argument was interrupted by the arrival of Hagrid, puffing up the path with Hermione, Neville, and a thoroughly chastised Malfoy in tow. Harry. Yeah, all right. Hagrid called. We saw the red sparks Malfoy sent up. This lout came runnin' back to us jabberin' about somethin' attackin', yeah. I'm unharmed, Harry assured him. Thanks to Helios. Hagrid looked between Harry and the centaurs in confusion. You know each other? We know of the Starwalker, Orion said stiffly. His reputation travels between herds. You found the unicorn, Hagrid, Harry said, pointing to the fallen creature. But we were not alone. Something was drinking its blood. Hagrid's expression darkened as he moved to examine the unicorn. The centaurs exchanged meaningful glances. We leave you to your task, gamekeeper, Helios said formally. The stars watch over you, Starwalker, he added to Harry before the 3 centaurs turned and cantered away into the depths of the forest. As they made their way back to the castle, Harry's mind raced. If Voldemort was trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone, if he was actually in or near Hogwarts right now, the danger was far greater than they'd realized. Harry, are you sure you're all right? Hermione asked anxiously as they climbed the stone steps to the entrance. You're very quiet. I'm thinking, he replied. The centaurs have warned of danger. Now I understand what they meant. In the common room, he explained everything to Ron and Hermione, the unicorn, the hooded figure, the centaur's warning, and his realization that Voldemort was after the stone. Snape wants the stone for Voldemort, Harry concluded. And Voldemort's waiting in the forest. And all this time we thought Snape just wanted to get rich. Stop saying the name. Ron whispered fearfully. The centaurs taught me that fear of a name only increases fear of the thing itself, Harry replied. Voldemort is his name, and we must face him directly. Ron shuddered but didn't argue further. But what do we do now? Hermione asked, her face pale. Harry considered this. We watch. We prepare. And if necessary, we act. The stone must be protected. In the days that followed, they maintained vigilant observation of both Snape and Quirrell, noting that the latter seemed to be growing weaker by the day. Meanwhile, exams approached, forcing them to divide their attention between studying and their self-appointed guardian duty. The evening after their last exam, as they sat by the lake enjoying the twin freedom from tests and the beautiful weather, Harry suddenly sat bolt upright. I've just thought of something, he said, jumping to his feet. We have to go see Hagrid, now. Why? Panted Hermione, hurrying to keep up with Harry's urgent stride. Don't you think it's a bit odd, Harry said, that what Hagrid wants more than anything is a dragon, and a stranger turns up who just happens to have a dragon egg in his pocket? How many people wander around with dragon eggs if it's against wizard law? Lucky they found Hagrid, don't you think? Why didn't I see it before? Ron and Hermione's confused expression suggested they still didn't understand, but they followed Harry to Hagrid's hut, where they found him sitting in an armchair, shelling peas. Finished your exams? Hagrid greeted them. Got time for a drink? No, we're in a hurry, said Harry. Hagrid, I need to ask you something. You know that night you won Norbert? What did the stranger you were playing cards with look like? Dunno, said Hagrid casually. He wouldn't take his cloak off. The three of them exchanged alarmed looks. It's not that unusual, Hagrid defended himself. Yeah, get a lot funny folk in the Hog's Head. Might have been a dragon dealer, mightn't he? I never saw his face, he kept his hood up. What did you talk about? Harry asked. Did you mention Hogwarts at all? Might have come up, said Hagrid, frowning as he tried to remember. Yeah, he asked what I did, and I told him I was gamekeeper here. He asked a bit about the sort of creatures I look after. So I told him, and I said what I'd always really wanted was a dragon, and then. I can remember too well, 'cause he kept buying me drinks. Let's see, yeah, then he said he had the dragon egg and we could play cards fair it if I wanted, but he had to be sure I could handle it, he didn't want it to go to any old home. So I told him, after Fluffy, a dragon would be easy. And did he seem interested in Fluffy? Harry asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Well, yeah, how many three-headed dogs do you meet, even around Hogwarts? So I told him, Fluffy's a piece o' cake if you know how to calm him down, just play him a bit o' music and he'll go straight off ter sleep. Hagrid suddenly looked horrified. I shouldn't ha' told ya that, he blurted out. Forget I said it. But Harry and his friends were already running back to the castle. We've got to go to Dumbledore, said Harry as they burst into the entrance hall. Hagrid told that stranger how to get past Fluffy, and it was either Snape or Voldemort under that cloak. It must have been easy, once he'd got Hagrid drunk. I just hope Dumbledore believes us. Where's Dumbledore's office? Hermione asked, looking around as if expecting to see a sign pointing them in the right direction. They had never been told where Dumbledore lived, nor did they know anyone who had been sent to see him. Something went wrong with this response, please try again. Trace ID, 98006915-18D2 I'm hooked, please keep going. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.